Stories number 1. My ex expected me to pick up her daughter from school, and I only agreed to pick up our son. And now she's furious. So, this blew up in my face in a way I didn't expect. And I'm honestly not sure if I'm in the wrong here or if my ex is just pushing boundaries like she's always done. I've been divorced for about 4 years now. My ex-wife, Jessica, and I share a 10-year-old son, Ethan. Our marriage ended because Jessica cheated, plain and simple. I found out after months of things not adding up, late nights, work events that didn't exist, and me being gaslit into believing I was paranoid when I confronted her. She finally admitted she had been seeing someone else for a while. That someone else, Tyler, became her boyfriend and is now her husband. They got married about 1.5 years ago. When Jessica and I split, I was devastated, but my focus immediately shifted to Ethan. I knew from day one that I wasn't going to let my hurt or anger toward Jessica get in the way of being a dad. We worked out a custody schedule split 50-50, alternating weeks, which has been mostly fine. Ethan is happy, does well in school, and is pretty well adjusted given the circumstances. Here's where it gets complicated. Jessica and Tyler have a daughter together, Ava, who is 6. Ava is sweet, funny, and loves tagging along with Ethan when they're together. I've always been kind to her. I bring snacks for both kids when I pick up Ethan. I include her in board games when I'm at their house. And I've taken both kids to the park if Ethan wants me to hang around a bit before drop-off. But here's the thing. Ava is not my child. She's Tyler and Jessica's daughter. I'm not her stepdad. And there's no legal or biological connection between us. Last week, Jessica texted me in the morning asking if I could do her a huge favor. She had some last-minute work thing come up. Tyler was out of town, and she needed someone to pick up both Ethan and Ava from school that afternoon. Ethan's school is on my way home from work, so that's not unusual. Ava goes to the same school, but she's in a different wing and has a different dismissal time about 15 minutes later. When I read the text, I felt this knot in my stomach. On one hand, I didn't want to abandon Ava or make her feel like she wasn't cared for, but on the other hand, it's not my responsibility. I didn't sign up to be a chauffeur for my ex's new kid. I thought about it, and I texted back, "Sorry, I can only pick up Ethan. You'll need to find someone else for Ava." She immediately blew up my phone, sending me message after message. Things like, "She's just a kid. How heartless can you be? And do you seriously want her sitting there alone while you drive away with your son? And you're punishing an innocent child because of your issues with me." I ignored most of it because I had work. But by the time I got to Ethan's school that afternoon, Jessica had already called the school office and told them I'd be picking up Ava too. When I showed up and the secretary handed me both kids, I had to tell them flat out, "No, I'm only authorized for Ethan." I could feel the judgment in the secretary's eyes when I said that, but I stood my ground. Ethan came with me, and Ava stayed behind in the office waiting for Jessica's sister, who showed up about 20 minutes later to get her. When I got home with Ethan, he seemed kind of quiet. Finally, he asked, "Dad, why didn't Ava come with us?" I told him gently, "Because Ava's mom and dad are responsible for her. I'm always here for you, buddy. But Ava isn't my kid. It's not my job to pick her up." He nodded but didn't say much. I could tell he was processing. Later that night, Jessica called me furious. She said I embarrassed her in front of the school staff, made Ava cry, and confused Ethan. She accused me of being petty and cruel, saying it would have cost me nothing to wait 15 minutes and give Ava a ride home with Ethan. I told her flat out, "Jessica, Ava is not my daughter. You don't get to assign me responsibilities for your new family. I've bent over backwards to make things easy for you with Ethan, but I'm not your backup babysitter. You and Tyler chose to have another child. That's on you." She started crying, then got angry again, accusing me of rejecting Ava and showing Ethan that family doesn't matter. That last part stung because I've worked my ass off to make sure Ethan feels loved and supported no matter what. But at the end of the day, I have to draw a line somewhere. Now, here's where I feel conflicted. Ethan clearly loves Ava, and in his mind, she's his little sister. From his perspective, me refusing to pick her up probably feels cold and maybe even mean. I don't never want Ethan to think I'm rejecting a child or that I don't care about people he loves. On the other hand, I feel like Jessica is manipulating that bond to blur boundaries and make me take on responsibilities that aren't mine. My friends are split. Some say It's just 15 minutes. Don't make a big deal out of it. You could have made life easier for everyone, including your kid. Others say, nope. You're right, Jessica. We'll keep pushing if you give in once. It's a slippery slope to her expecting you to help with every little thing for Ava. I keep going back and forth in my head. I care about Ava. I really do, but I also don't want to be taken advantage of. I divorced Jessica for a reason. I don't owe her anything outside of what directly affects Ethan. The irony is that I know if the roles were reversed, Jessica wouldn't lift a finger for any child of mine that wasn't hers. And maybe that's a bitter thought, but it feels true. So now I'm left wondering if standing my ground was the right call, or if I let my pride get in the way of doing something that might have been better for the kids in the moment. Ethan hasn't brought it up again, but I know he's thinking about it. Jessica, meanwhile, is still icing me out, sending me passive-aggressive emails about how a real father would never abandon a child. I don't know if I handled this right. I don't want to be the villain in my son's eyes, but I also refuse to be manipulated by my ex. Update. Things got a lot messier than I thought after the school pickup incident. He honestly thought after a few days the whole thing would blow over. That if anything, it's gotten worse. Jessica is not letting this go. And now it's starting to spill into areas I didn't expect. The morning after my post, Ethan seemed fine. He was chatty at breakfast, telling me about some science project he's working on and asking if we could go to the hardware store to pick up some materials. I thought maybe he'd moved on. But as soon as I dropped him off at school, I got a text from Jessica. You're going to have to explain to Ethan why his sister feels like you don't care about her. He cried last night asking why you didn't want Ava in your car. That gutted me. Not because I thought Jessica was right, but because I hate the idea of Ethan being caught in the middle. He's 10. He doesn't understand adult boundaries, divorce dynamics, or why I feel so strongly about not being responsible for Ava. All he knows is that he loves his sister and doesn't understand why I wouldn't just take her home. That same afternoon, the school called me. At first, I panicked, thinking something had happened to Ethan, but the office secretary just said, "We've had some confusion about dismissal arrangements. Can you clarify in writing whether you are authorized to pick up both Ethan and Ava or just Ethan?" Apparently Jessica had told the school again that I'd be picking up both kids going forward. When I reiterated that I was only responsible for Ethan, the secretary gave me that same disapproving tone as last time, like I was some heartless stepdad who wanted to leave a 6-year-old stranded. I ended up sending an email to the school clarifying, "I am only authorized for Ethan. Please do not release Ava to me under any circumstances unless her mother and I both provide written permission." That felt harsh, even typing it, but I didn't see another way to keep boundaries clear. Later that week, when I dropped Ethan back at Jessica's, she came out on the porch ready for war. "Do you have any idea how humiliating it is to have to explain to the school why you refuse to pick up your son's little sister?" she yelled, not even lowering her voice with neighbors around. Ethan froze, and I could see him getting anxious. I told her calmly, "Jessica, this conversation isn't happening in front of Ethan." She rolled her eyes and stormed back inside. But Ethan was quiet the whole drive back to her house. That night, I got another email from her. This time, ceasing Tyler. The email was long and basically accused me of failing as a parent, saying things like, "By refusing Ava, you're showing Ethan that love is conditional. You're creating trauma for both kids by making Ava feel like an outsider. We will be seeking legal advice if this continues, because you're actively harming their relationship as siblings." I sat there staring at my laptop, furious. Legal advice over me not wanting to pick up a kid that isn't mine. I almost fired back something angry, but instead I wrote a short reply. "I am responsible for Ethan. That's where my legal and moral obligations end. Stop trying to make me the fallback parent for your household." Meanwhile, Ethan has started asking little questions here and there. The other night, while brushing his teeth, he asked, "Dad, if Ava was in trouble, would you help her?" That crushed me. Of course I would. If Ava were hurt or in danger, I'd move heaven and earth for her. But that's different from becoming her default transportation because Jessica can't get her schedule straight. I tried explaining it gently. "Buddy, I care about Ava. I'd always make sure she's safe. But Ava has her own mom and dad, and they're the ones who need to make sure she gets home from school. My job is to take care of you." He seemed to take that in, but I can tell he's still confused. To make matters worse, Jessica's sister, the one who picked up Ava that day, sent me a Facebook message out of nowhere. It basically said, "I don't know why you're punishing a child for something that has nothing to do with her. We all know you're bitter about Jessica moving on, but this isn't how you should act as a grown man." That one really pissed me off, because I bent over backward to never drag Ethan into the drama, never badmouth Jessica in front of him, and never treat Ava poorly. I don't see myself as punishing Ava, I see myself as refusing to be manipulated by Jessica. But apparently to her family, I'm some cold-hearted jerk. Now I'm stuck. Ethan loves Ava, and I don't want him to feel like I'm rejecting her. But if I give in even once, I know Jessica will push harder. She start asking me to babysit, cover weekends, or pick Ava up anytime it's convenient for her. And honestly, that's not my responsibility. Detention has gotten so bad that Ethan's teacher pulled me aside during pickup yesterday and asked if everything was okay at home because Ethan has been a little distracted in class lately. That's when it hit me. This whole mess is bleeding into Ethan's school life, and that's the last thing I want. So now I'm torn. Do I stay firm and risk looking like the bad guy to everyone, including my son, or do I swallow my pride and just pick Ava up sometimes for the sake of peace, knowing it'll probably just enable Jessica to lean on me more? Right now, I feel like no matter what I do, someone's going to get hurt. Final update. Setting boundaries once and for all. It's been a few weeks since I last posted, and I wanted to give a final update because the situation has reached some kind of resolution, though not without a lot of stress and awkward conversations along the way. After Jessica sent me that email threatening legal advice, I decided I needed to get ahead of things. I made an appointment with a family law attorney. Not because I thought she actually had a case, my lawyer flat out confirmed she doesn't, but because I wanted to be prepared. I walked into that office and laid out everything. Our custody agreement, my role with Ethan, the texts and emails Jessica had sent about Ava, and how she was trying to pressure me. The lawyer didn't even blink before saying, "She has no grounds to force you to take responsibility for a child who isn't yours. This isn't a gray area. But what you should do is keep everything documented, stay polite, and don't let her bait you into a fight." Courts look favorably on parents who are reasonable and consistent. That advice hit home, because if there's one thing I want, it's for Ethan to see me steady and dependable. Meanwhile, Jessica was ramping things up at school. One afternoon, I went to pick up Ethan and was pulled aside by the principal. He told me that Jessica had asked the school to encourage me to pick up Ava because it's in the children's best interest to stay together. I had to calmly explain, again, that I am not Ava's guardian and I can't be expected to take legal responsibility for her. The principal looked uncomfortable, but ultimately nodded and said he understood. I walked out of that meeting furious that Jessica would try to use the school staff to pressure me. At home, Ethan and I finally had the heart-to-heart I'd been dreading. He asked me straight out, "Dad, do you not like Ava?" My heart sank. I told him, "Buddy, I like Ava a lot. She's funny, she's smart, and she's your sister. I care about her. But she already has a mom and dad who are supposed to take care of her. My job is to take care of you. That doesn't mean I don't care about Ava, it just means I'm not her parent." He thought about it for a while and then said, "So you'll always help her if she's in trouble, right?" And I told him without hesitation, "Always. If she ever needed me, I'd be there. But day-to-day stuff, like school pickup, that's her parents' job." That seemed to click for him, and he hasn't brought it up since. I could see the relief on his face just knowing I wasn't rejecting Ava, just setting boundaries. Jessica, on the other hand, wasn't done. She showed up at my house one evening during my custody week, pounding on the door while Ethan was doing homework. When I opened it, she launched into a rant about me destroying sibling bonds and being petty. I refused to argue. I just said calmly, "Jessica, this is not the time or place. We will only communicate through text or email about Ethan. Do not come to my house unannounced again." Then I closed the door. My hands were shaking, but I felt a strange sense of relief. The next day, I put it in writing. I sent her a short, direct email. "From this point forward, I will not discuss Ava's care or transportation. My responsibility is Ethan. I am happy to continue working with you to make his life smooth and happy, but I am not a parent to Ava and will not be treated as one. Please respect this boundary going forward." I CC'd my lawyer on that email. Funny enough, Jessica's tone changed immediately after that. Suddenly, the threats about legal advice stopped, the dramatic emails stopped. Tyle even reached out once, very different energy, and Jessica saying he understood where I was coming from and that he and Jessica would figure things out for Ava going forward. I don't know if he got tired of the drama or if he finally realized this wasn't a fight worth having, but things have been quieter since. And honestly, Ethan has been happier too, without the tension hanging over every pickup. He's back to his usual chatty self. Last weekend, we built a birdhouse together in the backyard, and he was laughing and focused instead of anxious and withdrawn. That alone reassured me that I'd done the right thing. I know some people might still think I should have just picked up Ava and saved everyone the hassle. But here's what I've learned through all of this. Saying yes to keep the peace in the moment often just creates bigger problems down the line. If I had agreed once, Jessica would have made it a pattern, and before long, I'd be juggling two kids when only one is mine. That's not fair to me, it's not fair to Ethan, and it's not fair to Ava either, because she deserves consistency from her actual parents. So here we are. The dust has settled, boundaries are clear, and I'm at peace with the decision. I'll always care about Ava as Ethan's sister, but I will never let Jessica blur the lines between her family and mine again. And as for Ethan, he knows the most important truth, that I'm here for him. Always. No matter what. Stories number 2. My husband of 25 years just remarried in the Catholic Church yesterday, and I don't even know how to process it. I honestly don't know where to start. Yesterday, I got a phone call from a friend who still attends the parish I used to belong to. She told me that she saw my husband, well, I guess technically my ex-husband, now standing at the altar in the very same church where we got married 25 years ago, holding another woman's hand and saying vows I once believed were sacred and forever. For some context, my name is Linda, and I married Mark when I was 24. We were young, but we thought we knew everything. He was charming, funny, always the life of the party. I was quieter, steadier, the kind of person who handled the bills, the groceries, the mundane stuff. We balanced each other out, or at least that's what I believed. Our wedding was in that exact Catholic church. I remember the pews filled with our families, the smell of lilac, the way his hands shook as he slid the ring on my finger. I remember the priest saying words about faithfulness, unity, and God's blessing. And I remember crying because I thought we were starting a forever. For years, I believed in that forever. We had 2 kids, Emily and Josh, who are now grown and building their own lives. We bought a house, took family trips to Florida, sat through countless soccer games and piano recitals. Our marriage wasn't perfect, no one's is, but it was real. Or at least I thought it was. Things started to unravel about 8 years ago. Mark became distant, more focused on work and hobbies than on us. I chalked it up to stress, maybe even a midlife crisis. But then I started noticing the late nights, the business trips that didn't quite line up, the text messages he hid when I walked into the room. When I confronted him, he denied it, said I was imagining things. Eventually, though, the truth came out. There was another woman. Her name was Carolyn. That was the beginning of the end. I filed for divorce 3 years ago. It was painful, messy, humiliating. I tried to keep it civil for the kids' sake, but I can't sugarcoat it. He betrayed me in the deepest way possible. Still, I told myself that at least the marriage was over. At least I could move on, rebuild, find peace. But yesterday broke something in me I didn't know was still fragile. When my friend called to tell me that Mark had remarried in the Catholic Church, I thought she must be mistaken. Our marriage had been in that church. We'd stood at that altar. In the eyes of the church, you can't just erase a sacrament unless you go through a formal annulment process. As far as I knew, that hadn't happened. And yet, there he was, marrying Carolyn in the very same place we had pledged our vows. I sat there in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room. I couldn't breathe. It was like being slapped with every memory all over again. I could picture the stained glass windows, the flickering candles, the organ music, only this time, I wasn't the bride. I wasn't even invited. I was erased. My daughter Emily texted me later that day, saying she'd heard about the wedding too. She sounded angry. How could Dad do that? She wrote, doesn't the church even care about what he did to you? My son Josh, on the other hand, was more pragmatic. He said, Mom, Dad's gonna do what he's gonna do. Don't let this get to you. But how do you not let something like this get to you? I haven't spoken to Mark directly since yesterday. I don't even know what I would say. Do I ask him how he managed to get the church's blessing? Do I demand to know if he went through an annulment process, essentially declaring our marriage invalid in God's eyes? Because if he did, then what was my life for the last 25 years? A lie, a mistake, a footnote on his way to something real. Part of me feels angry, betrayed all over again. Another part of me feels numb, and a small, shameful part of me feels jealous, not because I want him back, God no, but because he gets to stand in front of people and declare love again, while I'm still trying to pick up the pieces of what he left behind. I went for a walk this morning and passed by the church. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I just needed to see it for myself. The steps were still scattered with flower petals. There was a ribbon on the door. I stood there staring at it like some ghost haunting my own past. And I thought about 24-year-old me, in that white dress, walking up those same steps, full of hope. I wanted to scream at her, "Don't do it. He's not who you think he is." But of course, she wouldn't have listened. I don't know what happens next. Maybe I'll write a letter to the diocese and ask how this could even happen. Maybe I'll confront Mark. Maybe I'll just let it go and try to focus on my own healing. But right now, I feel like a piece of my history has been stolen. Like someone rewrote the script of my life without asking me. And I'm left wondering, if the church can pretend my marriage never existed, does that mean it really didn't? Or does it mean that, for 25 years, I was married only in name, while he was waiting for something else? All I know is that I'm tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of being hurt. Tired of carrying this weight. I just want to believe that what I gave, what I lived, mattered even if he's pretending it didn't. And maybe that's the hardest part. Update. It's been a few weeks since I first posted about finding out my ex-husband Mark remarried in the Catholic Church, and I've been sitting with a storm of emotions ever since. Thank you to everyone who commented, messaged, or even just read my rambling. It made me feel less invisible. Like I wasn't screaming into a void. I wasn't planning to confront Mark right away. Honestly, I wanted to just crawl into bed and stay there. But the thing is, when you have kids, even adult kids, you don't really get that option. They still look to you for some kind of steadiness, especially when their dad's decisions keep blindsiding us all. Emily was the first one to push. She's 23, working on her master's, and she has always been my firecracker. She came over a few days after the wedding and sat at my kitchen table with her laptop open, practically vibrating with anger. "Mom, this isn't right. He can't just do this without an annulment. I'm going to find out what's going on." And she did. She dug into the diocesan website, started emailing offices, even called the parish secretary pretending to be a curious parishioner. God, I love that girl. What she found out was what I feared. Mark had applied for and been granted an annulment. If you don't know, annulment in the Catholic Church isn't the same thing as a divorce. It's not saying the marriage ended. It's saying the marriage never existed as a valid sacrament in the first place. So essentially, the church declared that my 25-year marriage, the vows, the children, the home, the decades of life together didn't count. Reading that email Emily got back from the diocesan tribunal office was like being stabbed in the chest. I didn't even know he'd filed for one. He never told me. I guess technically they don't have to tell the other spouse if they don't participate. But it still felt like a secret trial where my entire life was on trial and I wasn't even invited. The grounds, apparently, were lack of due discretion. In plain English, Mark argued that when we married at 24, he wasn't mature enough to fully understand the commitment, therefore our marriage wasn't valid. And the tribunal believed him. I sat with that for days. I kept looking around our house. Though the mortgage is in my name now, and seeing the ghosts of a marriage that apparently never existed. The nursery I painted when I was pregnant with Emily. The dent in the hallway where Josh used to slam his skateboard into the wall. The kitchen table Mark and I saved for 2 years to buy. Was all of that invalid too? Was I just the babysitter of his children until he found his real marriage? I suddenly broke down and called him. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. He answered on the second ring, his voice irritatingly calm. Like we were discussing the weather. "Mark," I said, "how could you do this without telling me? You got an annulment? You stood up there with her like I never existed." He sighed. "Linda, it's not like that. The church doesn't erase the kids or the good memories. The annulment just means sacramentally, it wasn't valid. You're taking this too personally. That was his response to me finding out the church he once promised forever and had stamped me as a mistake. I lost it. I told him he was a coward, that he'd not only cheated on me, but now had the gall to rewrite history and paint himself as some poor confused young man who didn't know what he was doing, that he'd humiliated me all over again. And then he said something that I will never forget. "Linda, I'm sorry you can't move on like I have. I hope one day you can find peace." I had to hang up, because if I didn't, I was going to say something I couldn't take back. After that call, Emily was livid. She's refused to answer his texts since then. Josh is more conflicted. He's 21, and he's always been closer to his dad. He says he doesn't like what Mark did, but he also thinks Emily and I are dragging this out. "Mom," he said, "you divorced him 3 years ago. Why do you care what the church thinks?" And I wish I could not care. I wish I could shrug and say it doesn't matter, but it does, because that altar was the foundation of my adult life, and having it ripped away feels like being told my entire existence was a sham. I finally decided to meet with the parish priest. He wasn't the same one who married us. That priest retired years ago. The new priest, Father David, is younger, maybe mid-40s. I sat across from him in his office, staring at a crucifix on the wall, and asked him point blank, "How can the church tell me my marriage never existed?" He was gentle, I'll give him that. He explained that annulments don't erase children. They don't erase time spent. They just declare that sacramentally something essential was missing at the time of the vows. It doesn't mean your life was a lie. "Linda," he said, "it means God sees your pain. And he still blesses what you built." I wanted to believe him, but it felt like a band-aid on a bullet wound. The kicker came when Emily told me she refused to attend any family gatherings with Mark and Carolyn now. Josh, on the other hand, already went to dinner with them last week. When he told me, I cried. Not because he betrayed me, but because it hit me that this is my kids' reality now. To separate families, to narratives, and me, stuck in the past while everyone else rewrites the future. I've started therapy again. I probably should have gone back sooner, but I kept telling myself I was fine. I'm not fine. I'm grieving something I can't even name properly. A ghost marriage. A ghost life. The other day I found our wedding album in a box in the attic. I sat on the floor flipping through the pages, staring at my 24-year-old face, so hopeful, so certain. And for the first time since this all began, I didn't just feel sad, I felt angry for her, for me, because I deserved better than to be dismissed as invalid. So that's where I am. Not healed, not okay, but not silent either. I'm speaking it out loud, claiming my story even if the church says it doesn't count. Because damn it, it did count. For 25 years, it counted. And nobody, not Mark, not the church, not even God can take that away from me. Final update. It's been a little over 6 months since I first wrote about discovering that my ex-husband Mark had remarried in the Catholic Church after getting an annulment. At the time, I felt like my entire life had been erased, like the 25 years I poured into a marriage had been invalidated with a single stamp of approval from the church. A lot has happened since then, and I feel like I'm finally coming out of the fog. For starters, I stayed in therapy. That was the best decision I made in all of this. At first, I just cried every session. I kept asking my therapist, how do you grieve something that technically still exists in the memories of your children, but doesn't exist on paper? It was like mourning a ghost. But slowly, session by session, I realized that my pain wasn't really about the annulment itself, it was about the betrayal, the secrecy, the way Mark went about it without including me, without even acknowledging the weight of what we had built. My therapist reframed something for me. She said, "Linda, the church's ruling doesn't get to define the reality of your life. You are the witness of your own story. You raised children. You built a home. You lived a marriage. No tribunal can erase that." At stuck, for the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't crazy for feeling so deeply hurt. Things with the kids have shifted. 2. Emily still won't speak to Mark. She's firm on her boundaries. And while I've encouraged her to try and stay open, I also respect her choice. Josh, on the other hand, has continued seeing his dad. For a while, that stung like I was being abandoned while Mark got to play happy new husband. But over time, I realized Josh has to figure out his own relationship with his father. It doesn't mean he loves me any less, it just means he needs to navigate this in his own way. And surprisingly, he's been more open with me than I expected. One night he admitted, "Mom, I don't like what Dad did either, but I also don't want to lose him. I'm scared if I take Emily's side, I'll lose a parent altogether." Hearing that broke my heart, but it also softened something in me. because at the end of the day, both of my kids are caught in the middle of something they didn't choose. I've also been forced to face the practical side of things. I didn't realize how much Mark's remarriage would ripple into social circles. Friends we once shared invited Mark and Carolyn to events, and I had to make a choice: either stop going or show up with my head high. At first, I avoided everything, but then I went to a mutual friend's retirement party last month. It was the first time I saw Mark and Carolyn together in public since the wedding. I won't lie, it was awkward. They walked in holding hands, and I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. But then I caught my reflection in the bar mirror, standing there with my glass of wine, laughing with old coworkers, and you know what? I didn't crumble, I didn't cry, I didn't run. I just existed, separate from him, separate from them. And that was enough. The biggest change, though, is that I've started building a new chapter. I joined a hiking group through my local community center. At first it was just an excuse to get out of the house, but now I actually look forward to Saturday mornings. There's something healing about walking trails, breathing fresh air, and not being defined as Mark's ex-wife. And yes, there's someone in the group I've been talking to more than the others. His name is David. He's a widower in his early 50s, quiet but kind. We've gone for coffee after hikes a couple of times, and while I'm not saying it's anything serious yet, it feels nice. It feels like a reminder that I'm not done living, even if a chapter closed in such a painful way. As for the church, I've made my peace, in my own way. I no longer feel the need to argue with priests or email tribunals. They can say what they want about sacraments and validity. I know what I lived. God knows what I lived. My children know what I lived. That's enough. A few weeks ago, I went up to the attic again and pulled out that wedding album. But this time, instead of sobbing, I flipped through it slowly and said thank you. Thank you for the girl I was, who believed in love. Thank you for the children who came from that union. Thank you for the years of laughter, even if they ended in betrayal. And then I closed the album, set it back in the box, and for the first time I didn't feel crushed by it. I felt free. So here's my final word on this saga. Mark may have rewritten history in the church's eyes, but he can't erase me. He can't erase Emily or Josh. He can't erase the reality that for 25 years, I was his wife, but he also no longer has power over my future. That's mine now, and I intend to live it fully, with or without him. Stories number 3. Tifu by letting my mom smoke with Mezzo. This is one of those things I never in a million years thought I'd be writing about, but here I am, sitting in my apartment trying not to die of secondhand embarrassment. It happened last weekend, and I've been replaying it over and over in my head like a bad sitcom. For context, I'm 26 and live in Oregon. Recreational weed is legal here, so I've gotten pretty casual about it. I don't smoke every day, but I'll usually light up on weekends or after a long shift. My mom, on the other hand, is 56, a retired elementary school teacher, and the last person on earth I thought would ever want to try it. Growing up, she was that mom, the one who packed extra snacks for the whole soccer team, wore seasonal sweaters with dancing reindeer, and gave us speeches about gateway drugs when she found my brother with a beer in high school. My dad passed away 3 years ago, and since then my mom, Susan, has been different. Not in a bad way exactly, but she's been trying to rediscover herself. She started going to pottery classes, joined a hiking group, even took a solo trip to New Mexico. I've been cheering her on because, honestly, she deserves to live after taking care of us kids and dad all those years. But nothing prepared me for this. Last Saturday, she came over for dinner. I made tacos, we opened a bottle of wine, and we were just catching up on life. At one point, she leaned across the table with this weird smirk and said, "So, I hear you've been enjoying those little green plants." I nearly choked on my tortilla. "Excuse me." She laughed. "Don't play dumb, Alex. Your cousin Rachel told me you smoke sometimes." "I'm not mad. I'm just curious." I wanted to sink into the floor. "Rachel is dead to me now, by the way." I stammered something about it being legal and not a big deal. And then my mom just shrugged and said, "Well, maybe I'd like to try it sometime." I thought she was joking, so I laughed, but she didn't laugh back. She looked dead serious. "Mom," I said slowly, "are you telling me you want to get high?" "Don't make it sound like a crime," she said, sipping her wine. "I've been on this planet 56 years, Alex. I've earned the right to have a little fun." I should have shut it down. I should have said, "Nope, not a good idea." but I was caught between shock and this weird, misplaced desire to be the cool son. So instead I said, well, I mean, I guess if you really want to. Biggest mistake of my life. After dinner, I pulled up my little stash. Mom looked at it like I had just revealed a portal to another dimension. She picked up the grinder like it was some kind of alien artifact. So, what do we do? She asked, eyes wide with excitement. I decided a joint would be safer than pulling out my glass piece. So I rolled one up. As I was doing it, my mom leaned in and whispered, "You're really good at that." I swear my soul left my body. We went out on my balcony, and I lit it up. She watched me take the first drag like she was studying for a test. When I passed it to her, she hesitated for a second, then took this enormous inhale like she was trying to vacuum up the entire joint in one go. Of course, she immediately started hacking up alone. I had to run inside and grab her some water while she waved me off between coughs, gasping, I'm fine, this is normal, right?" After a few minutes, she calmed down and tried again, this time taking a much smaller puff, and then she started giggling, not just regular giggling, like uncontrollable, tears streaming down her face laughter. At first, it was kind of adorable. She kept saying, "Oh my God, I can't feel my cheeks, and why does the moon look like it's following me?" Even though we were sitting still, but then it escalated. She started talking about how when she was in high school, she and her friend Denise once stole a traffic cone and put it in the principal's parking spot. She kept shouting, "We were rebels, Alex. Rebels." She told me she always wondered if John Stamos would have dated her if he just met her at the right time. She accused my cat, Oliver, of judging her choices. She even pulled out her phone and tried to FaceTime my aunt to confess her sins, but thankfully I grabbed it before she hit call. At one point, she laid down flat on the balcony and said, "This is the best mattress I've ever been on." It was concrete. Meanwhile, I was so paranoid the neighbors were going to hear her screaming about John Stamos that I couldn't even enjoy my own high. The real disaster, though, happened when she got hungry. She stumbled into my kitchen and started raiding my cabinets like a raccoon. She made a peanut butter and pickle sandwich, ate half a bag of tortilla chips, and then God help me she found my roommate Chris's leftover Chinese takeout. I tried to stop her, but she just wagged a finger at me and said, "Sharing is caring." Chris walked in 20 minutes later and found my mom on the couch, covered in crumbs, watching SpongeBob reruns at full volume. He froze in the doorway, looked at me, and said, "Dude, what the actual hell?" I whispered, "Don't ask." Eventually, she passed out on the couch, clutching a bag of Cheetos like it was a teddy bear. I threw a blanket over her and just sat there, wondering what cosmic joke I had signed up for. The next morning, she woke up groggy but in shockingly good spirits. She stretched, looked at me, and said, "Well, I slept like a rock. When are we doing that again?" I almost fainted. I told her maybe it was a one-time bonding experience, and she just winked at me. A wink, so yeah. Tifu by letting my mom smoke with me. She hasn't stopped bringing it up since. At brunch with Emily, my sister, she casually mentioned, "Alex and I had a little adventure last weekend." Emily stared at me like she wanted to murder me on the spot. My mom just laughed and ordered a mimosa. I'm both horrified and oddly relieved. Horrified because I can never look at her the same way again, and relieved because I guess she's not as uptight as I thought. Still, I think I'll be hiding my stash next time she comes over. God help me if she ever finds my edibles. Update. Okay, so I thought I was prepared for the aftermath of letting my mom smoke with me. I was wrong, dead wrong. First, there was Emily, my sister. She called me the next morning, absolutely furious. "Alex, are you out of your mind? Mom told me what happened, and I don't even know if I can look at you right now." I tried to explain that I didn't really pressure her. It was kind of her idea, I swear, but Emily didn't care. She kept saying, "You can't just give mom weed and then leave her to giggle about John Stamos all night. This is serious." Then there was my dad's old book club group. Somehow, through some horrifying chain of events, my mom mentioned it during their Zoom meeting. 1 second, they were discussing Pride and Prejudice and knitting patterns. The next she's yelling across her living room, "And Alex let me smoke." It was amazing. "You should try it." I got a series of texts from the ladies in the group. One said, "Your mother has changed, and so have you. Apparently, are you encouraging her?" I had no words. I'm 26. I am not supposed to be a revolutionary influence on retired teachers' drug habits. Meanwhile, Mom has fully embraced this newfound hobby. She texts me almost every day with little weed updates. Yesterday, she sent a photo of herself holding a tiny succulent with the caption, "Olive and I are about to get lifted. Don't tell your sister. Olive is the succulent." Yes, she named her plant and now smokes with it. Things came to a head at our family barbecue last weekend. I thought it would be low-key. I was wrong. Mom showed up early, carrying a small rolling kit like a picnic basket. She gave me a sly look and said, "Alex, we're going to have a little fun before everyone else gets here." I froze. "Mom, no, not here. Not in front of your friends. Your book club, Emily, Josh, everyone." She pouted like I had just told her she couldn't have dessert. "Fine, I'll wait," she said, sulking over to the porch. Then she whispered, "But we will. Don't worry." I spent the next hour dodging conversations with neighbors while she giggled to herself, saying things like, "I feel like a teenager again. Remember, Alex, I was rebellious once too." By the time Emily and Josh arrived, Mom was already full-blown stoned, eating a veggie platter like it was a buffet at a wedding, and trying to convince the neighbors' kids that the moon was made of cheese. I had to corral her into the living room and threatened to put on a documentary about sea turtles to get her to calm down. Josh, surprisingly, was kind of entertained. He whispered to me, "She's harmless, mostly," but Emily was horrified. She spent the whole afternoon glaring at both of us, muttering about enabling and parental responsibilities, even though she's my sister and legally an adult. Then Mom decided it was time to teach the younger generation a lesson. She grabbed my cousin Ethan, who's 19, and tried to show him how to roll a joint. Ethan looked like he'd just been asked to do brain surgery on himself. I had to step in and say, "Mom, no, absolutely not." She huffed but eventually surrendered after Ethan started sweating and whisper shouting, "I don't want to go to jail." By the end of the day, Mom had managed to know half the neighbors, embarrass Emily to the point of near tears, confuse Josh in a way that he now refuses to comment on, nearly set the BBQ grill on fire trying to cook with the vibes, introduce the concept of weed bonding to her entire book club. And somehow, through all of this, she's now convinced that she's discovered her true calling. She's signed up for a weekend retreat on mindfulness and cannabis at a local lodge. She sent me the link and asked if I'd like to chaperone. I haven't replied yet. Meanwhile, I'm trying to figure out how to keep my life under control. I've hidden all my edibles, put my stash in a lockbox, and started leaving the apartment whenever she comes over. I've even considered claiming I switched to vaping so she can't accidentally get me in trouble with the landlord. Despite all of this chaos, I have to admit something. Seeing her laugh like that, seeing her actually let go for once in her life, there's a part of me that thinks maybe this wasn't all bad. She's happier, oddly confident, and talking about life like she's 20 again. She even started dating again, which is terrifying to witness, but also kind of awesome. So yeah, Tifu by letting my mom smoke with me. I've tried to put boundaries in place, I've tried to laugh it off, and I've tried to hide my embarrassment. But let's be real, this is going to haunt me forever. And honestly, I think she knows it. Yesterday she texted me, "Next weekend, we try brownies? I may need an exorcist." Final update. It's been almost 6 months since the infamous weekend when I let my mom, Susan, smoke with me for the first time. Honestly, I'm still not sure if I should be proud, horrified, or just resigned to the fact that my life has become a low-budget comedy special. First off, Mom has fully embraced this new hobby. She calls it her herbal meditation, which is apparently very serious and spiritual, at least according to her. She now has a little stash box labeled Susan's Zen Garden, which she guards like it's a treasure chest. She texts me almost every day with updates like, "Olive and I are about to ascend," referring to her succulent, or "just did a lap around the block with good vibes only." I swear, she's become the Instagram influencer of her own living room. Emily still gives me death glares whenever Mom mentions anything cannabis related, but she's softened a little. She admitted that while she thinks this is ridiculous, she kind of appreciates seeing Mom laugh like that. Josh, on the other hand, has decided to fully embrace it as family entertainment. He even jokes that our apartment should be renamed the Laughing Lounge. One of the most absurd developments happened at Thanksgiving. Mom decided she was going to cook the turkey enhanced. I thought she meant she was experimenting with seasoning, but no, she infused it with CBD oil. My dad's old friends, who all came over, didn't know what hit them. The turkey was surprisingly fine, actually, but the mashed potatoes? Let's just say we all experienced new levels of culinary confusion. Mom's social life has exploded. She joined a local cannabis club, met other experienced explorers, and now has a little circle of friends who all share snacks, giggles, and occasionally inappropriate stories about college shenanigans. She even asked me to come to one of their educational sessions, which involved a lot of laughing, poorly executed yoga, and someone's homemade brownies that were way too strong. I survived, but only barely. Meanwhile, I've had to set serious boundaries. No joints at family events, no smoking during brunch, and definitely no sharing with other unsuspecting adults or minors. I've also invested in multiple lockboxes for my own stash, and honestly, it's become a full-time job to manage access. Mom, of course, has taken all of this in stride. She calls me her boundary enforcer, which I think is both hilarious and terrifying. The other day she actually said, "Alex, I think you should write a book about me. Think of the chaos." I laughed, but inside I was considering it. Because let's be real, this deserves to exist in some form of documentation. Over the past few months, I've noticed a subtle shift in our relationship. Before, Mom and I had a fairly standard adult child-parent dynamic, polite, loving, with the occasional argument about dishes or life choices. Now, we have this weird camaraderie that's part conspiratorial, part I hope she doesn't embarrass herself in public too badly. She wink at me across the table, whisper, "Remember last time?" And I can't help but laugh, even though my stomach knots in anticipation of the inevitable. I also realize that through all this chaos, my mom is happier than I've seen her in years. She laughs more, sleeps better, and isn't as weighed down by guilt or past regrets. She's dating again, cautiously but confidently, and she actually asked me for advice about her first post-smoking date because apparently she likes to be fully relaxed before meeting someone new. I offered a few tips and tried not to cringe as she texted me a selfie with the caption, "Vibes on point." As for me, I've had to grow up in ways I didn't expect. I've learned how to handle embarrassment in public, how to set boundaries without feeling guilty, and, oddly enough, how to appreciate the lighter side of life. I can laugh at my mom's antics, even when she's loudly announcing to the neighbors that the brownies are calling, or showing her CBD-infused cookies to anyone who walks by. I've realized that part of parenting and adult life is surviving chaos, sometimes with a sense of humor intact. The final act of this saga came a few weeks ago. Mom wanted to throw a family bonding evening, which involved pizza, a few pre-rolled joints strictly for adults, and a marathon of old sitcoms. Emily refused to attend. Josh came, I came, and Mom, she was radiant, giggling at everything, narrating the jokes, and occasionally trying to convince Oliver the cat to join in on the good vibes. For the first time, I didn't panic. I didn't feel embarrassed. I just sat there, watching my mom fully live in the moment, and I thought, maybe this is exactly what she needed, and maybe, just maybe, letting her smoke with me that first time wasn't the worst idea I ever had. So, the moral: if your 56-year-old mother asks to try cannabis, proceed with extreme caution, set boundaries, hide the edibles, and prepare for chaos. But also, maybe, just maybe, let her have a little fun, because seeing her happy, unrestrained, and laughing like that, priceless. And yes, she has asked about brownies again. I haven't said yes yet. Stories number 4. My best friend doesn't know the real reason I'm not at his wedding. I'm sitting here the night before my best friend's wedding, staring at the ceiling of my tiny apartment, feeling sick to my stomach because I lied to him. He thinks I'm missing the wedding because of work travel. But the truth is I just can't bring myself to go, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to tell him why. I've known Matt since middle school. We were the kind of best friends who basically lived at each other's houses. His mom, Carol, treated me like her own. My dad used to joke that he had a second son because Matt was always around. We went through everything together: baseball tryouts, breakups, prom, moving away for college, even after college. When life started pulling us in different directions, we'd still find our way back to each other. He was my brother in every sense but blood. When Matt started dating Lily about 4 years ago, I was happy for him at first. She was smart, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in his hobbies. But over time, I noticed things that set off alarm bells. She had this way of cutting him down in front of people, small digs about his job, his family, or even me. Once, at a barbecue, she laughed about how immature Matt and I were for still playing video games together. Another time, she said he should grow out of his little bromance because he had a real relationship now. I tried to brush it off, but the more I watched, the more I realized it wasn't just harmless teasing. The thing that really broke me was about 2 years ago, Matt and I had gone on a camping trip, something we'd been doing since high school. When we got back, Lily accused him of running away from responsibilities and guilt-tripped him for days. He told me she even threatened to leave him if he kept prioritizing childish stuff with me. That was the first time I saw Matt shrink himself, like he was trying to fit into the box she wanted him in. I tried talking to him, gently, without being pushy. I said, "Man, are you happy? Like really happy with her?" He got defensive and told me I didn't understand because I wasn't in a serious relationship. That hurt, but I let it go. He's stubborn, and I didn't want to push him away. Fast forward to his engagement. He called me one night, all excited, and told me he was going to propose. My stomach dropped. That I forced myself to be supportive when they had the engagement party. I went, smiled, and toasted to their future, even though I felt like I was watching him chain himself to someone who didn't respect him. Then came the wedding planning. At first, I was supposed to be his best man. That's what he told me when he first got engaged. "Of course you're my best man, you're my brother." But months later, after I noticed Lily giving me the cold shoulder every time we were in the same room, Matt sat me down and said he was making his cousin, Ryan, the best man instead. He said it was because Ryan lived closer and could help more with planning. I nodded and said it was fine, but inside, it gutted me. I could feel the distance growing. The breaking point happened about 6 months ago. We were all out for dinner. Me, Matt, and Lily. The conversation drifted to childhood memories, and I mentioned something funny from when Matt and I were kids. Lily rolled her eyes and said, "God, you two are like an old married couple. No wonder Matt had trouble dating before me. You're basically his emotional crutch." I laughed awkwardly, thinking Matt would brush it off, but instead he stayed quiet. He didn't defend me. That silence was louder than anything. After that, I stopped reaching out as much. He'd text me sometimes, but it always felt strained. When the wedding invitations went out, I got mine. But it wasn't personal. No call. No "Hey man, can't wait to have you there." Just an envelope in the mail. I stared at it for days, feeling this pit in my chest. So when work offered me a chance to go on a week-long training trip right around the wedding, I jumped on it. It wasn't mandatory, but I said yes and used it as my excuse. I texted Matt that I was so sorry, but I couldn't make it because of work. He was disappointed, but he didn't press me. Just said, "I get it, man. I'll miss you." Now here I am, the night before his big day, knowing full well I could have been there if I wanted to, but I can't bring myself to sit in that church and watch him marry someone who isolates him, belittles him, and slowly chips away at the guy I grew up with. It feels like a betrayal to not be there, but it also feels like a betrayal to sit there and clap while he ties himself to someone who doesn't treat him the way he deserves. The guilt is eating me alive. Part of me wonders if I'm a coward for not telling him the real reason. But how do you say to your best friend, "I can't watch you marry her because I think she's toxic for you"? He's an adult. He's made his choice. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm blinded by nostalgia, clinging to who he was instead of accepting who he is now. I don't know if our friendship will ever recover from this. Maybe years down the line, when the dust settles, I'll tell him the truth, or maybe I'll just let him believe I was too busy with work. And he'll never know that I stayed away because my heart couldn't handle it. All I know is tomorrow, when he's standing at that altar, I won't be there, and I'll probably regret it either way. Update: my best friend doesn't know the real reason I wasn't at his wedding. It's been about 6 weeks since Matt's wedding, and I've been carrying around this weight every single day. I honestly didn't expect to post again, but some things have happened that I need to get off my chest. First off, the wedding itself came and went. I didn't go. I was sitting in a hotel conference room, technically working, but in reality just staring at my phone, waiting for pictures to pop up on social media, and they did. A mutual friend posted a group photo from the reception. Everyone was dressed to the nines. Matt was in his tux, Lily was in her dress, and they looked happy, painfully, gut-twistingly happy. Seeing it crushed me in ways I wasn't ready for. I expected relief, maybe validation, Like, see, you made the right call not to go, but instead, it just felt like I abandoned him. He was starting this huge chapter of his life, and his supposed best friend wasn't there. I didn't reach out right away. Honestly, I was ashamed. But about 2 weeks after the wedding, Matt called me. I almost didn't pick up because my stomach dropped when I saw his name, but I did. And the first thing he said was, "Man, I missed you at the wedding." I stumbled through some lame excuse about how work had me tied up. He was quiet for a second and then said, "Yeah, I know. It's just, you've been distant, and I feel like I don't know why." I almost broke right there. I almost told him everything, but I froze instead. I mumbled something about stress, work, life being busy. He didn't push, but I could hear the disappointment in his voice. We didn't talk long. A few days later, his cousin Ryan, the best man, reached out to me on Facebook. I've never been super close to him, but he basically said, "Hey, I know things have been weird. Matt really needed you there. I don't know what's going on between you two, but he notices you pulling away." That message hit me hard because it confirmed what I already knew. Matt felt my absence, and not just physically, at the wedding. Emotionally, too. The turning point came last weekend. Matt invited me and a couple of our old high school friends over to his new place for a game night. At first, I didn't want to go. I was terrified of seeing Lily and having her glare at me across the table, that I figured if I kept avoiding everything, our friendship was going to rot completely, so I went. It was weird. Lily was polite, but you could feel the frost in the room whenever she looked at me. She made a comment about me being too important to make it to the wedding, which stunned. Matt immediately changed the subject, but I could tell he wasn't comfortable. After everyone left, I lingered. I told Matt I wanted to talk. My hands were sweating, and I honestly thought I might throw up, but I finally said it. "I didn't miss your wedding because of work. I just couldn't bring myself to sit there and watch you marry someone who I don't think treats you the way you deserve." He just stared at me. I swear the silence lasted forever. Then he asked, "So you skipped my wedding because you don't like Lily?" I said it wasn't about liking or not liking her. It was about the way she puts him down, the way she isolates him, the way I've watched him shrink over the years. I told him I love him like a brother, and I didn't know how to clap and smile through something that felt like watching him lose himself. Matt was angry. He said, "You think you know my marriage better than me. You think I'm some victim who doesn't know what's best for himself." His voice cracked when he said it, and that hurt more than if he'd just yelled. We went back and forth for a while. He accused me of being jealous, of not being able to handle that he moved on from our bromance. I swore up and down it wasn't about that, but he wasn't hearing it. Eventually, he just said, "I need space from you." And that was it. I left. It's been almost a week since then, and I haven't heard from him. I don't know if I did the right thing by finally being honest, or if I just destroyed whatever was left of our friendship. Part of me thinks maybe he'll eventually see what I see. Another part of me worries that I was arrogant and judgmental, and that even if Lily has her flaws, it wasn't my place to skip his wedding over it. Either way, the damage is done. I told the truth, but it feels like I lost my brother in the process. Final update. My best friend doesn't know the real reason I wasn't at his wedding. It's been about 9 months since I first wrote that post. And I guess this is the final chapter of the story. A lot has happened. Some of it messy, some of it painful, but I think I finally have some clarity after that night when I told Matt the truth. We didn't talk for a long time. Months, actually. I sent a couple of short texts here and there. Birthday wishes, a congrats, when I saw on social media that he and Lily bought a new car. But he never responded. It felt like shouting into a void. I tried to respect his space, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't check his Facebook or Instagram constantly, trying to get glimpses into his life. From the outside, things looked picture perfect. Smiling photos of him and Lily at concerts, dinners, a trip to Florida. But I couldn't stop noticing little details that broke my heart. The way his smile never quite reached his eyes. How stiff his body looked in some of the photos. Maybe I was overanalyzing. Maybe I was just projecting my own feelings. But every picture felt like I was looking at a stranger who used to be my best friend. Man, about 3 months ago, I got a call from Carol, his mom. She said she was worried. Apparently, Matt had been distant with her too. He wasn't calling as often. And when she did see him, he seemed off. She asked me if I thought he was okay. That call tore me up inside because I had no good answer. All I could tell her was, "I don't know, Carol." He won't talk to me anymore. 2 weeks later, Matt showed up at my apartment out of nowhere. I hadn't seen him since the wedding night conversation, and honestly, I thought my heart was going to pound out of my chest when I opened the door. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, hair messy. Not the polished version of himself I'd been seeing online. He sat down on my couch and the first words out of his mouth were, "I'm not happy." He admitted that things with Lily had been harder than he'd let on, that she was controlling about money, critical of his friends, and constantly made him feel like he was less than. He said he kept trying to convince himself it was normal, that all couples fought, that maybe he just wasn't doing enough, that after the wedding, after all the stress and attention died down, he felt this crushing emptiness. And then he said something I'll never forget. "When you told me you couldn't come because you didn't want to watch me marry her, I hated you for it. But I also couldn't stop thinking about it, because deep down, I knew you weren't wrong. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, tears running down my face, because I'd carried so much guilt for months." And hearing him say that was like ripping open a wound and soothing it all at once. We talked for hours. He didn't sugarcoat it. He was angry at me for how I handled things, for bailing on him when he needed me, for not trusting him to make his own choices, and he had every right to be. But he also said that me being the only person willing to tell him the ugly truth mattered. He said, "It felt like betrayal, but maybe it was love in its rawest form." As for Lily, they're still together. He's not ready to leave, and I'm not going to pressure him. That's his journey. All I can do is be there when he needs me. We're rebuilding, slowly. We meet up for beers sometimes. We've even gained a little like the old days. But there's this invisible scar between us now. The wedding-shaped hole that will always sit in our friendship. Do I regret not going to the wedding? Yes and no. Yes, because it hurt him deeply. And I'll never get that day back. No, because it forced us into honesty. As brutal as it was, if I had gone and smiled through it, maybe we'd still be drifting apart under the surface, pretending everything was fine. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe he and Lily will work things out. Maybe they won't. Maybe our friendship will never quite be what it was when we were kids. But I've accepted that love doesn't always look like clapping from the pews. Sometimes it looks like standing outside, waiting to catch the person you care about when they finally admit they're falling. This will probably be my last update. I just wanted to close the loop, because carrying this story around, in pieces, was eating at me. I don't know if I handled everything the right way, but I handled it the only way I knew how, and for now, Matt and I are still in each other's lives, even if it's messy and more complicated than I ever wanted it to be. And that's enough. Stories number 5. My boyfriend's weird reactions to my future salary. Ever thought money would be the thing that made me start questioning my relationship? But here we are. I'm 26, finishing up a dual master's program in computer science and data analytics. I've been working my butt off the past 5 years, juggling grad school, internships, research assistantships, and a part-time job to pay my bills. It's been exhausting, but I've had my eyes on the prize the whole time. The kind of job that changes your financial future. My boyfriend, Jason, is 28. We met when I was finishing undergrad. He's been working in marketing at a mid-sized company since then. His job pays okay, not amazing, but steady. He's always been supportive of me in school, at least on the surface. He bragged to his friends about how smart I am, how I'm going to make it big. It felt good to have someone proud of me. Now that graduation is a few months away, things are getting real. I've been interviewing with some pretty big tech companies, and the offers are starting to come in. The numbers are honestly shocking. Like, base salaries around $140,000 with bonuses and stock options. I expected to do well, but I didn't expect it to be this much, especially compared to what Jason makes. He's at about $55,000. The first time I mentioned an offer, Jason went quiet. I thought he was just surprised, so I gave him space. Later that night, he made a weird joke. "Guess you'll be my sugar mama now." I laughed, but it felt off, like there was an edge behind it. Since then, it's been a pattern. Every time I bring up anything related to my job search, he gets this strange look on his face. He makes comments like, "Don't forget us little people when you're rich," or "Hope you won't think you're too good for me." At first, I brushed it off as nerves or insecurity, but it's starting to wear on me. Last weekend, we went out with some of his friends, his coworker Adam and his girlfriend, Brittany. They asked how school was going. And I casually mention I'd gotten an offer from a company in San Francisco. Jason immediately jumped in with, "Yeah, she's going to be making enough to buy me a Tesla." Everyone laughed, but I sat there frozen. He said it in this weird half-joking, half-serious tone. Brittany even teased, "Jason, you better lock that down before she realizes she can do better." Jason laughed along, but later in the car he was cold and distant. When I asked what was wrong, he said, "I hate when people say stuff like that. It makes me feel like I'm some charity case you're keeping around." I told him that wasn't true at all, that I love him for who he is, not what he makes, but he just muttered, "Yeah, we'll see," and stared out the window the rest of the ride. It's not just comments either. I've noticed him nitpicking me more lately, about how much time I spend studying, about little things around the apartment, even about how I dress. Last week, I put on a blazer for a virtual interview, and he said, "You look like you're trying too hard. You don't need to act like some corporate robot." It stunned because I wasn't acting. I was just preparing for something important. We had a bigger fight a few nights ago. I was excited because one of the companies invited me to a final round on site. I told Jason, "If I get this, it could be a game changer for us." His face darkened, and he snapped, "For us? Don't pretend like this is for both of us. You're doing this for yourself. You're not going to want some guy like me tagging along once you're making 3 times my salary." I was shocked. I told him again that I'm building a future for both of us, that I see him in it. He shook his head and said, "You don't get it. Guys don't like being outearned by their girlfriends. It screws everything up." Then he stormed out and didn't come home until late. That comment has been replaying in my mind on a loop. Guys don't like being outearned, but I know plenty of couples where the woman makes more, and it works fine. I don't want to believe Jason is that fragile about gender roles, but his behavior lately makes me wonder. To be clear, Jason isn't a bad guy. He's kind in a lot of ways. He brings me coffee when I'm up late studying. He calls my parents to check in when I'm stressed. He's held me while I cried over exam results, but this money thing seems to be triggering something deep in him, and I don't know how to handle it. I talked to my older sister, Emily, about it. She's been married for 10 years and makes more than her husband, and she said it only worked because her husband was secure in himself. She told me to pay attention to how Jason handles this now, because it's only going to get harder when the actual paychecks start coming in. That scared me, because she's usually right about these things. My dad, Robert, is old school but supportive, he told me. A man who's intimidated by your success isn't the man you want in your corner long term. My mom, Karen, was gentler. She said, "Maybe Jason just needs reassurance. That some men struggle with their ego when it comes to money." She suggested couples counseling before I make any big decisions. The hardest part is that I love Jason. We've been together almost for years. We've talked about marriage, kids, buying a house someday. It's not like I can just toss that aside, but I can't ignore the fact that every time I picture myself accepting one of these jobs, I don't see Jason standing next to me smiling. I see him scowling, making another joke about me being his sugar mama. Part of me wonders if he's trying to sabotage things subconsciously. Like, if he can't stop me from getting the job, he can at least chip away at my excitement so it doesn't feel like a win. And that terrifies me, because if that's true, it means he's not in my corner after all. I keep telling myself it'll get better once he adjusts, that maybe this is just a shock to his system, and he'll come around once life settles into a new normal. But another part of me can't stop thinking, what if this is just who he is? What if success means losing him? I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm standing on the edge of something huge, a career I've dreamed of, financial security ever thought I'd have. And instead of feeling pure joy, I feel dread, because the person I love most might not be able to walk through it with me. Update. My boyfriend's weird reactions to my future salary. It's been a little over 3 months since I wrote my original post, and so much has happened that my head is still spinning. I graduated, I accepted a job, I moved, and my relationship with Jason. Well, let's just say things didn't exactly go how I hoped. So first, the job. I ended up taking an offer with a major company in Chicago. The base salary is $145,000, plus signing bonus, plus stock options. I honestly still feel like someone is going to wake me up and tell me it's all a mistake. My family was over the moon when I told them. My dad cried. My mom baked me a cake with "You did it" written on it in neon frosting, and my sister Emily hugged me so hard I thought she cracked a rib. Jason's reaction was complicated. When I told him, he smiled, said he was proud of me, kissed me, and we went out for dinner to celebrate, but the whole night, I could feel this tension radiating off him. Every time the waiter congratulated me, Jason would make some joke like, "Yeah, now I guess I get to retire early," or "She's the breadwinner now, so I'll just be a house husband." Everyone laughed, but I could see his jaw tighten every time. Things got worse when I started looking for apartments in Chicago. My job includes a relocation stipend, so I started looking at nice but modest one-bedroom places near the office. Jason asked if he should move with me. I hesitated, because my gut reaction was no. Not because I don't love him, but because I didn't trust how he handled this transition. I told him gently that maybe it'd be better if we did long distance for a bit, just until he could find a good marketing job in Chicago and get settled. He blew up. He accused me of trying to upgrade my life without him. He said, "Just admit it, you think you're too good for me now." I tried to calm him down, but he just kept spiraling, saying I was abandoning him. After he supported me all through school, I reminded him that support doesn't come with strings attached. But he wasn't hearing it. The next few weeks were rough. Every time I brought up moving, Jason would get sulky. He started picking fights over the smallest things, like me buying new interview clothes, or spending time with classmates who'd also gotten offers. One night, he flat out said, "If you move without me, we're done." That gutted me. I cried for hours after he left that night, but deep down, I realized he was giving me an ultimatum: choose him or choose my career. And I wouldn't throw away everything I've worked for just to soothe his insecurities. When I officially signed the lease on my Chicago apartment, Jason and I had the worst fight we've ever had. He accused me of humiliating him, of emasculating him, of not being grateful for his support. He said I was selfish for not putting us first. I told him I was thinking of us, but I couldn't sacrifice my dreams just to keep him comfortable. He stormed out, slammed the door, and didn't come back for 2 days. When he finally did, he was calmer, but he told me he couldn't do long distance. He said he needed a partner who wanted the same life as him, someone who wouldn't outgrow him. I told him that wasn't fair, that relationships aren't supposed to be competitions, but he just shook his head and said, "You'll understand one day." We broke up a week before I moved. It was messy, ugly, heartbreaking. Part of me wanted to beg him to change his mind, but another part of me knew I'd be making a mistake if I did. Now I've been in Chicago for almost a month. My job is intense but exciting. My coworkers are amazing. And for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm standing on solid ground financially. I sent Jason a message after my first week, just saying I hoped he was okay. He never responded. It still hurts. I miss the good parts of him, the silly jokes, the way he'd bring me coffee when I was studying, the comfort of having someone to share my life with. But I don't miss walking on eggshells every time I mention my career. I don't miss feeling guilty for succeeding. I guess the big realization I've had is this: love isn't enough if one person resents the other's growth. I wanted Jason to be proud of me, to walk beside me as we built something together, but he wanted me to stay small so he wouldn't feel left behind. And that's not love, that's fear. So here I am, in a new city, building a new life. It's not what I pictured when I first started dating Jason, but maybe it's what I needed all along. Final update: my boyfriend's weird reactions to my future salary. It's been a little over a year since I last posted, and since a few people messaged me asking how things turned out, I thought I'd give a final update. Honestly, I barely recognize the person who wrote the first post. I've been in Chicago for a year now, and life has completely changed. My job is demanding but fulfilling. I've been promoted once already, and my manager has hinted at me being considered for a lead role next year. Financially, I'm in a place I never thought I'd be at 24. I've paid off all my student loans, built an emergency fund, and even helped my parents replace their old roof. For the first time in my life, money isn't this constant way pressing on me. As for Jason, we haven't spoken since the week we broke up. I did get some updates through mutual friends. He stayed in our hometown for a while, then moved to Denver for a job in marketing. From what I've heard, he's doing fine, which I'm glad about, but I don't think we'll ever be in each other's lives again. And that's okay. Looking back, I see now how many red flags I ignore. The passive-aggressive comments, the way he'd get quiet whenever I accomplished something, the way he always had to be the provider even though we were basically the same age and both figuring things out. At the time, I chalked it up to normal relationship bumps, but the truth is, he couldn't handle me growing into myself, and if he couldn't celebrate my wins, then he was never going to be the partner I needed long-term. The biggest change is in me. I used to feel guilty for wanting more, guilty for being ambitious, guilty for not just being happy with what I had. But this past year taught me that wanting more for yourself doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It means you know your worth. And anyone who makes you feel small for chasing your dreams is showing you that they don't belong in the life you're building. On a more personal note, I'm dating again. Nothing super serious yet, but I did meet someone through work. His name's Alex, and he's an engineer. What's refreshing is that he never makes me feel like I have to shrink myself. He brags about me more than I brag about myself. And when I told him about my promotion, he literally popped open champagne in his kitchen and toasted to me. It felt so good to be celebrated instead of resented. Sometimes, I still think about Jason, especially the version of him from the early days when he was supportive and kind. I think he did love me in his way, but love without growth just turns into resentment. And as hard as it was to walk away, I'm grateful I did, because otherwise, I'd still be apologizing for succeeding, still dimming my light so someone else could feel comfortable. So that's where things stand. New city, new job, new chapter of my life. I've realized that careers and money aren't everything, that the right partner will cheer you on instead of making you feel guilty for reaching higher, and the wrong partner, well, sometimes letting go is the kindest thing you can do for both of you. If anyone reading this is in a similar spot, with a partner who makes you feel bad for your achievements, please hear me. You don't owe anyone the small version of yourself. The people who truly love you will never be threatened by your growth. And that's my final update. Thanks to everyone who encouraged me last year. I don't think I'd have had the courage to move forward without all of your words echoing in my head when I needed them most. Stories number 6. My ex-husband went no contact with our daughter because of his wife, and I don't know how to process. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here we are. I feel like my chest is carrying around a 10-pound weight that doesn't go away, and I don't know if I'm overreacting, or if this is one of those situations where I should stop trying to justify what's happening and just call it what it is. Heartbreaking. I was married to Daniel for 8 years. We met in college, married in our mid-20s, and had our daughter, Lily, when I was 27. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but I thought we were a solid team. That illusion shattered when he had an affair with a coworker. Now his wife, Melissa. I filed for divorce. It was painful, messy, and left scars, but I kept telling myself, at least Lily will still have her dad. Daniel remarried quickly, and Melissa became stepmom to Lily almost overnight. At first, I bent over backward to make co-parenting work. I agreed to flexible visitation schedules, holidays, even when it meant me being alone on Christmas Eve so Lily could spend time with her dad's new family. I swallowed my pride because I thought, she deserves her father. She deserves the relationship. But over the years, cracks started to show. Melissa made it clear she didn't like sharing Daniel's attention. She's younger than me, very controlling, and has this way of turning every interaction into a power play. When Lily was about 9, Melissa started insisting on things like Lily calling her mom, which Lily never felt comfortable with. Lily has always been polite, but she told me privately, I only have one mom, and that's you. I tried to stay out of it, because I didn't want to poison her relationship with them. But it became clear that Melissa set the rules in their house, and Daniel went along with them to keep the peace. I noticed little things. Lily's calls to him being cut short, him skipping her soccer games if Melissa didn't want to go, her gifts for Father's Day never making it into their house. It was death by 1,000 cuts. The real breaking point came when Lily was 12. She had a birthday party at my house, invited friends, cousins, my parents, everyone. Daniel promised he'd be there. He didn't show. When Lily called him crying, Melissa answered and said, your dad is busy. He has a family to take care of. That was the first time Lily looked at me with that hollow expression I'll never forget, like a light had gone out. After that, their relationship spiraled. Lily would still reach out, text him, leave voicemails. Sometimes he'd respond days later. Sometimes not at all. One time he texted, please stop calling so much. It causes issues here. She was 13. That text broke her. By the time she turned 14, Daniel was basically a ghost in her life. He skipped her middle school graduation, claiming work. But my sister later told me she saw photos of him at a weekend getaway with Melissa. Every time Lily got her hopes up, they were crushed. Still, she kept trying. Because she's a kid, and kids just want their parents to love them. Now Lily is 16, and it's official. Daniel has gone no contact with her. He blocked her number, unfollowed her on social media, and told my brother during a chance encounter at a grocery store that it was better for everyone if we moved on. When my brother asked about Lily, he apparently shrugged and said, "Melissa comes first. I can't even describe the rage and sadness I feel. It's one thing to walk away from me I made peace with that years ago, but walking away from your own daughter, and not just walking away, but letting someone else dictate that choice. That's something I can't wrap my head around." Lily pretends she doesn't care. She makes jokes about being dadless, tells her friends she's better off without him, and changes the subject whenever his name comes up. But I see it. I see how she stares at other dads cheering on their daughters at games. I see the way she clams up around Father's Day. I hear her cry in her room at night. Thinking I don't notice, I've tried therapy for her. And she goes, "But it's not a magic fix. The therapist says abandonment like this leaves scars that last a lifetime." I believe it, because I can see it shaping her already. She doesn't trust easily. She doesn't want to talk about college because what's the point if the people you love just leave? She's 16, and she already feels disposable. And here's where my guilt eats me alive. I keep wondering if I should have fought harder. Should I have gone back to court when Melissa started inserting herself? Should I have demanded stricter visitation rules so he couldn't just fade away? Should I have told Lily the truth about the affair earlier, so she wouldn't put him on a pedestal? Did I fail her by not protecting her from this? My family is furious. My dad said he'd confront Daniel if he ever saw him again. My mom calls Melissa the witch and says karma will handle her. My sister says Lily should cut her losses and never look back. Everyone's angry on our behalf. But none of that changes the fact that my daughter lost her father by his own choice. Sometimes I lie awake at night and think about the day Lily graduates high school, the day she gets married, the day she maybe has kids of her own, and I wonder, will Daniel regret it then? Will he suddenly want to swoop back in when the milestones happen? And if he does, will Lily let him? Or will she shut the door the way he did to her? I don't know. All I know is that I'm here. I'll always be here, and I'll keep being both mom and dad as best I can. But part of me feels broken too, because no matter how much love I pour into her, there's a hole in her heart that I can't fill. Only he could, and he chose not to. So that's where I'm at. Angry, hurt, guilt-ridden, watching my daughter navigate pain she doesn't deserve, and wondering if maybe, just maybe, some people really are capable of choosing a partner over their own child. Update. My ex-husband went no contact with our daughter because of his Wi-Fi. It's been about 7 months since I made my original post. Honestly, rereading it now feels like opening an old wound. So much has happened since then that I almost don't recognize the version of myself who wrote that. Back then, I was just furious and confused. Now I'm still angry, but I've also had to accept some really painful truths. First off, Daniel never reached out, not once, no texts, no emails, no letters, nothing. The silence is deafening. But it's also telling. If he wanted to be in Lily's life, he would be. That's the reality I've finally stopped trying to sugarcoat. What's harder to talk about is Lily. After I posted, she went through a really rough period. Her grades slipped for the first time ever, and she started acting out in little ways, staying out late, not answering her phone, skipping practice. She told me flat out one night, "If dad doesn't care, why should I?" It scared the hell out of me because I could see the pain eating at her from the inside out. I leaned hard on therapy during that time, both individual sessions for her and some family ones for us together. It wasn't easy. There were nights she wouldn't even get in the car, nights she cried through the entire appointment, nights she said she hated me for making her go. But slowly, something shifted. Her therapist gave her tools to process the abandonment, and she started journaling and drawing as outlets. Then something unexpected happened. She joined a debate team. My sister Emily suggested it because she thought Lily needed a space to channel her energy into something constructive. At first Lily said no, but I bribed her with Starbucks after practice and somehow it stuck. Now she's obsessed. Watching her stand up and argue her case with such fire and confidence, I cry almost every time. It's like she's reclaiming her voice after being silenced for so long. But I'd be lying if I said the hurt is gone. A few weeks ago was Father's Day, and it hit Lily hard. She stayed in her room most of the day, and later I found she'd been scrolling old photos of her and Daniel when she was little. She didn't cry in front of me, but I heard her. Those muffled sobs still break me. Something else happened recently too. Word got around that Daniel and Melissa had a baby. A mutual acquaintance posted congratulations on Facebook, and of course it made its way back to us. Lily saw the picture before I did. She stared at it for a long time and then said quietly, "So I wasn't enough to keep him around. But this one is." I didn't know what to say. All I could do was hold her while she cried. That moment crystallized something for me. I can't protect Lily from every heartbreak, but I can be honest with her. I told her, "Your dad's choices have nothing to do with your worth. They're about him. His failures as a parent don't make you unlovable." She didn't say much in response, but I think she heard me. As for me, I've been working through my own guilt. Therapy has helped me see that I didn't fail Lily. Daniel did. I can't control what he does or doesn't do. What I can control is showing up for her every single day, in big and small ways. Making her breakfast before school, cheering her on at tournaments, sitting in the passenger seat while she learns to drive. Even though my knuckles are white the whole time, those are the things she remembers. The rest of my family has also stepped up in incredible ways. My dad has basically become her surrogate father figure. He takes her fishing, helps her with math homework, teaches her how to fix things around the house. It's not the same as having Daniel, but it's something, and she clings to it. My mom is her safe place to vent when she doesn't want to unload on me. Emily shows up to every debate competition like it's the Super Bowl. Lily isn't lacking love, even if one person chose to walk away. So where does that leave us now? Lily is stronger than I ever imagined. She's still hurt, of course. But she's also resilient. She told me recently, "I don't want him back anymore. If he didn't want me then, I don't need him now." I don't know if she fully believes that yet, but it was the first time she's ever expressed something close to closure. And me, I've stopped waiting for Daniel to wake up and realize what he's lost. He made his choice. I've made mine too. To stop centering him in our lives. He's not a character in our story anymore. It's just me and Lily. Moving forward, it still hurts. It probably always will, but I'm proud of my daughter. And I'm proud of myself for refusing to let his absence define us. We're building something new, something that doesn't rely on him. That's all I can do. Final update. My ex-husband went no contact with our daughter because of his Wi-Fi. It's been just over 2 years since my last update, and I think this will probably be my final one. A lot has changed, some of it painful, but most of it hopeful. Writing this feels surreal because, when I first posted, I was drowning in anger and guilt. Now I feel lighter, not healed completely, but in a place where I can breathe again. Lily is 18 now. She graduated high school this spring with honors. Watching her walk across that stage, wearing her cap and gown, tassels swinging. I cried so hard my sister Emily had to hand me an entire pack of tissues. My dad cheered so loudly that everyone in the section turned and laughed. Lily beamed. And for the first time in years, she didn't look like she was searching the crowd for someone who wasn't there. Daniel didn't come. We didn't expect him to. But some tiny part of me wondered if he'd show up at least for this milestone. He didn't. There was no card, no call, no acknowledgement. And you know what? It didn't ruin the day, for once. His absence didn't overshadow Lily's joy. She told me later, "Mom, I only thought about him for like 2 seconds. Then I looked at everyone who actually was there, and I felt lucky." That was huge. A lot of people asked if Daniel ever reached out after Melissa had their baby. He didn't, not to Lily. Anyway, I heard through the grapevine that they've since had a second child. Mutual acquaintances sometimes send me updates, though I never ask for them. I stopped showing Lily the pictures. She knows he has other kids now, but she doesn't want to see. She says, they're his family. I'm not, and while that stings, I respect her boundary. One of the hardest moments came earlier this year, when Lily was filling out college applications. There's a section where you list your parents. She stared at it for a long time and then said, "Do I even put him down?" She ended up leaving his name off. She said it felt dishonest to call him a parent when he hasn't been one for years. That moment gutted me, but it also showed me how far she's come. She's not pretending anymore. She's not holding out hope. She's accepting reality on her own terms. Therapy has been a lifeline. Lily still goes once a month, and she's even talked about becoming a counselor herself someday because she wants to help other kids who feel abandoned. That kind of resilience blows me away. She took her pain and decided to turn it into something that could help others. That's strength I don't think I had at her age. As for me, I've let go of the guilt. I don't blame myself anymore for Daniel's choices. I see now that no amount of court orders or compromises or swallowing my pride could have forced him to be a father if he didn't want to be. That was his choice, his failure, not mine. My job was to love Lily, protect her, and show up for her. And I've done that every single day. And life has moved forward in other ways too. I started dating someone last year. His name is Mark, and he's kind, steady, and most importantly, he treats Lily with respect. He doesn't try to replace anyone, but he shows up. He's come to her debates, her senior recital, her graduation. Lily was hesitant at first, terrified of being let down again, but she's warmed up to him in her own time. When she invited him to her graduation dinner, I knew it was her way of saying, "You're in." That meant the world to me. Do I still feel anger at Daniel? Sometimes, yes. I think I always will. There are nights when I wonder if he ever lies awake thinking about Lily, if he ever regrets missing birthdays, recitals, graduations, if he'll wake up one day and realize the door is locked, that he chose to shut himself out of her life and can't just waltz back in. But those thoughts don't consume me anymore. They're just passing shadows. The truth is, we've built a good life without him. A life full of family dinners, movie nights, road trips, laughter, arguments, apologies, and love. Lily isn't defined by his absence. She's defined by her resilience, her drive, her heart. This chapter is closed for me. Daniel may have walked away, but Lily and I kept going, and we'll keep going, together. If anyone out there is reading this while dealing with a similar situation, watching your child get abandoned by someone who should love them unconditionally, please know this: your love matters. Your consistency matters. They may hurt, they may doubt, they may rage, but the fact that you're there, day in and day out, is the anchor they'll remember. Daniel made his choice, and we made ours, to live, to love, and to move forward. That's the end of our story. Stories number 7. Getting married young is not a good idea for women, and I wish someone had talked to me before AITA got married, when I was 21 years old. At the time, it felt like the most natural, exciting thing in the world. Everyone around me seemed to approve. My mom thought it was sweet that I found my forever person early. My dad walked me down the aisle with tears in his eyes. My best friend from high school was already married herself, and she encouraged me, saying I'd beat the clock and wouldn't have to deal with the stress of dating in my late 20s. The church community, we were both raised in, applauded us for doing things the right way, and of course, my then fiancé Mark told me constantly how lucky he was that we wouldn't waste years playing games like other couples. Looking back, I wish someone had pulled me aside, sat me down, and said plainly, "You're too young to know what you want from life, let alone from a lifelong partner." But nobody did. Everyone seemed to think it was romantic, like a fairy tale. The truth is, Mark and I never really got to know each other outside of the bubble of being teenagers in love. We met when I was 19, started dating immediately, and within a year, he proposed. We'd never lived alone, never paid bills together, never dealt with adult responsibilities. Our biggest fights up to that point had been over which Netflix show to binge and whether he should spend more time with his fraternity buddies. I remember the day we signed the lease on our first apartment after the wedding. I was thrilled, decorating with thrift store finds and Pinterest-inspired DIYs. He immediately claimed the biggest closet for his clothes and gaming setup. I thought it was a joke at first, but it wasn't. That set the tone for much of our marriage. His needs first, mine second. Money was our first big hurdle. I was finishing college, working part-time at a coffee shop, while he had just started his first real job in sales. He loved to spend new car, fancy dinners, tech gadgets. I was the one stressing over rent, utilities, and whether we'd have enough for groceries. When I suggested we make a budget together, he laughed and said, "Relax, we're young. We should have fun now." When I pressed harder, he accused me of being controlling and trying to act like his mother. Then there were the expectations. Mark had this idea that because he was the husband, I should handle everything domestic, cooking, cleaning, laundry, remembering birthdays, keeping the fridge stocked. If I asked him to help, he'd say, "That's not what my mom did. She took care of the house." His mom, by the way, didn't work outside the home. I was juggling classes, a job, and later a full-time career, but he still acted like vacuuming once a month was a huge favor he was doing me. The emotional gap grew wider each year. By the time I was 25, I had graduated, started a stable career in marketing, and was thinking about grad school. I wanted to travel, to explore new hobbies, to build friendships outside of our couple bubble. Mark, on the other hand, was content to drink beer with his buddies and rewatch the same shows. He mocked my ambition, saying things like, "You're turning into one of those corporate robots," or "What's the point of more school? Aren't I making enough for us?" He didn't understand that my goals weren't about money, they were about fulfillment. The final straw came during a trip to visit his family. His sister pulled me aside and said, "You've changed. You're not that fun, bubbly girl Mark married. You're too serious now." I wanted to scream. Of course I'd changed. I grew up. I wasn't 21 anymore. I was a woman with responsibilities, dreams, and opinions. The problem was, Mark hadn't grown with me. He was still the same college beau, and he resented me for becoming an adult. We divorced when I was 28. It wasn't one explosive fight that ended it, it was death by 1,000 cuts. The constant dismissals, the lack of partnership, the feeling that I was raising a man-child instead of building a life with an equal. One night, I sat on the couch after another argument about money. Staring at our wedding photo on the wall, I realized I didn't even recognize the girl in the white dress anymore. She was naive, hopeful, and too eager to please. She thought love was enough. Leaving was terrifying. My parents were devastated. My mom said that marriage is supposed to be forever, and I had to explain that forever with the wrong person isn't noble, it's a prison. Some of our mutual friends took his side, saying I'd outgrown him, like it was my fault for changing. But I knew in my bones it was the right decision. It's been 3 years since the divorce. I'm 31 now. I live in a small but cozy apartment with my dog, Sophie. I finished grad school. I've traveled Italy, Colorado, New Orleans. I've made new friends who see me for who I am now, not who I was at 21. I'm dating again, slowly, and it feels different this time. I'm not rushing. I'm not molding myself into someone else's fantasy. If I could go back in time, I'd tell that younger version of myself, wait, live, grow. Figure out who you are before you bind yourself legally, financially, and emotionally to another person. Getting married young might work for some couples, but for so many women, it traps them in roles they didn't consciously choose. It locks them into versions of themselves they've already outgrown by the time they hit their late 20s. I don't regret loving Mark. We had some good times, and I learned a lot. But I regret not knowing myself before I promised myself away. I regret not having an older woman in my life to tell me, you don't have to rush. There's no prize for being the youngest bride in your friend group. You're allowed to build your own life first. So here I am, saying it now, for anyone younger who might read this. Please, don't rush into marriage. Take the time to learn who you are, what you want, and what you won't compromise on. Because marriage is not just about romance and fairy tales, it's about partnership, growth, and respect. Without those, love alone will not carry you through. I survived my young marriage, but I lost a lot of years I'll never get back. I won't waste any more. Update: getting married young is not a good idea for women, and I wish someone had talked to me before I did. It's been almost a year since I first posted. At the time, I was just raw, still untangling the feelings of regret, anger, and sadness from my 20s. I didn't expect my story to blow up the way it did, but I read every single comment. Some of them made me cry, some made me laugh, and some stung in ways that forced me to really reflect. A lot has changed since then, and honestly, I'm in a much better place now. First off, I want to say thank you to the people who told me I wasn't broken or wasted goods just because I divorced young. For so long, I carried this quiet shame with me, like I had failed at the one thing women are supposed to be good at: keeping a marriage together. When my ex, Mark, used to say I was too ambitious or too serious, I worried maybe he was right. That maybe I wasn't fun, or lovable, or easy to live with. Reading strangers affirm that no, I wasn't crazy, and yes, it's okay to outgrow someone. It gave me a kind of permission I didn't know I needed. After the divorce, I poured myself into grad school and my career. That's still going strong. I was recently promoted to a senior marketing strategist role. The younger version of me would have been shocked, because Mark always rolled his eyes when I said I wanted leadership roles. He used to say, "Why chase stress when you could just chill at a regular job?" The irony is, I love what I do. It's not easy, but I wake up excited for the first time in years. On a personal level, I've reconnected with my independence in a way I didn't expect. When I first lived alone after the split, I was terrified. I'd never signed a lease in my own name, never bought furniture without someone else's info, never really cooked just for me. Now, I have a little apartment that feels entirely mine. Every photo on the wall, every book on the shelf, every plant I probably overwatered, it's me. I didn't realize how much I had compromised my identity until I wasn't doing it anymore. And, yes, there's someone new. I hesitated to even include this because the last thing I want is to make this update about a man, but he's part of my story now. His name's Daniel. We met through a mutual friend at a trivia night, and what struck me about him from the beginning was how much he listened. Like, genuinely listened. When I talked about my job, he asked real questions instead of glazing over. When I mentioned how I want to travel more, he didn't joke about it being impractical. He got excited and started brainstorming places with me. The biggest difference: I don't feel like I'm shrinking myself to make him comfortable. With Mark, I was always careful about how much of my ambition or seriousness I showed. With Daniel, it feels like the more of me I reveal, the more he likes me. We're not rushing. I'm not 21 anymore. I've learned, if we move forward, it'll be on mutual terms, with mutual respect. I also want to talk about my family. My mom and dad struggled a lot when I divorced. They're old school, marriage's sacred types. For a while, they blamed me. They said things like, marriage is about compromise, maybe you gave up too soon. That hurt more than I can explain, because it felt like they didn't see how much I had already compromised. But after time and some hard conversations, they've come around. My dad admitted recently that he noticed how unhappy I was in those last years with Mark, but didn't know how to say anything without causing drama. My mom is slower to admit it, but she's been supportive lately, even asking about Daniel. I think they're realizing it's better to have a daughter who's divorced and thriving than a daughter who's married and miserable. Mark, we don't speak anymore. The last time I saw him was over a year ago at a mutual friend's barbecue. He was drunk, telling anyone who would listen that I bailed because she wanted to be some corporate hotshot. That used to hurt, but now it just sounds sad. He's still in sales, still living in the same apartment we first rented together. I don't say that to be smug, if anything. I just feel relieved that I'm not still stuck there with him, reliving the same arguments, feeling smaller by the day. The reason I wanted to post this update is because when I wrote the original story, I was still in the grieving stage, grieving my marriage, my lost 20s, my naivety. Now, I feel like I've moved into something else. Not bitterness, but acceptance, maybe even gratitude. I wish I hadn't rushed into marriage so young, but that experience shaped me. It taught me what I will and won't accept in a partner. It taught me that I can survive starting over, even when it feels impossible. If you're reading this and you're 20, 21, and you're feeling pressured to lock down your forever person right now, please slow down. There is no prize for finishing first. You don't have to hand over your future just because everyone around you says it's time. Build your life first, know yourself first, because once you do, you'll realize that partnership isn't about completing you, it's about someone joining you on the road you've already chosen. That's where I'm at now, walking my road, one step at a time. And this time, I get to choose who walks beside me, and only if they can keep up. Final update. Getting married young is not a good idea for women, and I wish someone had talked to me before I did. It feels surreal to be writing this final update because so much of my life has shifted since I first posted years ago. Back then, I was still raw from the divorce, trying to make sense of how I had lost my 20s to a marriage that left me feeling small and stifled. Now I'm sitting here in my late 30s, in a quiet house, coffee next to me, and I finally feel like I've arrived at a place of peace. Lily, that's my daughter, who was still in middle school, and I wrote the first post, is now in college. She's studying psychology and already telling me she wants to go for her master's someday. Watching her pack up her dorm room, drive off with a car full of thrift store furniture, and wave at me in the rearview mirror was one of the proudest and hardest moments of my life. For so long, I worried that my bad choices would hurt her, that my failed marriage would leave scars she couldn't shake. But she's resilient, she's grounded, and she knows she doesn't have to rush love just to prove something. That alone makes all my pain worth it. As for me, yes, life looks very different now. I eventually did remarry, but this time it wasn't rushed. And it wasn't because I was scared of being alone. Daniel and I dated for years before we tied the knot. We had the hard conversations early. Money, kids, careers, family expectations. None of it was brushed under the rug when we got married. It was because we both chose each other fully, not because we were afraid of what people would say if we didn't. We even had a small wedding, 40 people, in a garden. Nothing flashy. I didn't wear white. I wore a soft blue dress that made me feel like myself. Do I ever regret marrying Mark so young? I used to. I used to stay up nights replaying all the what ifs. What if I had waited? What if I had listened to that gut feeling before walking down the aisle? But now, with distance, I don't see it as wasted time anymore. That marriage shaped me. It taught me what silence feels like in a home, what it's like to sit across the table from someone who doesn't really see you. But it also taught me to listen to my gut, to value my independence, and to never, ever make myself smaller to keep the peace. Without that chapter, I might not have had the courage to build the life I have now. Mark and I haven't spoken in years. The last I heard, he remarried, and I think they have a baby now. We don't run in the same circles anymore, and honestly, I don't feel bitterness. If anything, I hope he's grown too. I hope he figured out how to support someone instead of clipping their wings. But whether he did or not, it doesn't touch me anymore. That part of my life is a closed door. Looking back, what I wish more than anything is that someone had told me, at 20, that it's okay to wait, that being single isn't a failure, that love found later, with the right person, is so much richer than love rushed into because of pressure or fear. I thought marriage was the end goal, that if I didn't do it young I was somehow behind. Now I know the real goal is building a life you're proud of, and inviting someone into it only if they fit. For the younger women reading this, please hear me. You don't need to prove your worth by marrying early. You don't need to settle just because you're scared of being left behind. Focus on your education, your career, your passions, your friendships. Build a life that feels full and meaningful to you first. The right partner won't dim your light, they'll be drawn to it. And for the women who, like me, already went through it, who already married too young, or divorced, or feel like they wasted their 20s, please believe me when I say it's not too late. I was 32 when I started over, and now at 38 I'm happier than I've ever been. There's life after the wrong marriage. There's love after the wrong love. There's peace after the storm. This will be my last update, because my story isn't about regret anymore. It's about gratitude. Gratitude for my daughter, who gave me strength when I didn't have it. Gratitude for my second chance at love. Gratitude for the career I built from scratch. And yes, even gratitude for my younger self for being brave enough to walk away when it would have been easier to stay. If I could sit across from that 21-year-old version of me, white dress hanging in the closet, wedding countdown marked on the calendar, I'd take her hands and tell her, it's okay to wait. It's okay to want more. You are not behind. You are not unworthy. You are enough exactly as you are. That's the ending I never thought I'd have. And it's the one I've made for myself. Stories number 8. My wife is paranoid that I'm transy. Don't even know where to start with this because it sounds ridiculous when I try to explain it out loud. But this is something that's been building for months and it's starting to eat at our marriage. I'm Ryan, 34. Married to Amanda, 33. We've been together for almost 10 years, married for 6. We have a daughter, Chloe, who's 5. We both live in Indiana. Pretty normal suburban life. Nothing about us screams chaotic marriage, at least on the outside. But Amanda has developed this intense paranoia that I'm secretly transgender and just waiting to come out to her. This all started kind of subtly, around last year. She made a comment when I was doing laundry. I had accidentally mixed some of Chloe's clothes in with mine and ended up folding one of her little shirts. Amanda looked at me and said, "You're awfully comfortable folding girl clothes." I laughed because, what? She said it again later in a different tone. "You don't seem to mind doing women's stuff." I brushed it off as her being playful. Then it escalated. She started side-eyeing my body wash choices. I buy the regular Dove unscented or sometimes something with shea butter because my skin is sensitive. Suddenly that became, "Why don't you buy the men's kind? Are you trying to smell feminine?" When I pointed out that literally half of men's products smell like a cheap teenage Bozak's body spray, she huffed and said, "It just seems like you're trying to soften yourself." The paranoia didn't stop there. A few months ago, I made an offhand comment about how growing up, my mom taught me how to cook, and that I actually enjoy learning. Amanda froze and said, "Your mom probably wanted a daughter." I thought she was joking, but she was dead serious. She's built this entire narrative in her head that my mom secretly wanted me to be a girl, and that I've been secretly leaning into it ever since. It's gotten bad enough that she goes through my Amazon purchase history and questions things. Example, I bought a really nice face moisturizer. Normal, right? She asked me 3 different times if it was really for me. Another time, I ordered a book by a female author, and Amanda immediately said, "Are you researching something you're not telling me?" The most uncomfortable moment came 2 weeks ago. We were at her sister's house for dinner. Her sister, Kelly, and brother-in-law, Derek, are both really laid-back people. Out of nowhere, Amanda blurts out, "Ryan, are you ever going to tell me if you want to transition? Because I feel like you're hiding it." The whole table went silent. I turned red. Derek's jaw literally dropped. And Kelly looked horrified. I laughed nervously and said, "No, Amanda, I'm not hiding anything. I'm happy as I am." But Amanda doubled down. "It's okay if you are, but you have to be honest with me. I don't want to wake up one day with a different spouse." We left early that night. I begged her in the car to stop humiliating me in front of people, and she cried the whole way home, saying she just knows something's off. The thing is, I'm not trans. I've never questioned my gender. I'm a guy who happens to enjoy cooking, cleaning, taking care of my skin, and being involved in raising our kid. I'm not hyper-masculine. I'm not the kind of guy who sits on the couch and watches sports all weekend. But I'm also not secretly struggling with gender identity. It feels like Amanda has built this entire conspiracy theory in her head, and nothing I say convinces her otherwise. Her paranoia is starting to bleed into our intimacy, too. Last week, she straight up asked if I fantasize about being a woman when we have sex. I told her absolutely not, that I'm just trying to connect with her. She rolled over and said, "I don't believe you. I felt like I was sleeping next to a stranger." I've tried to bring up therapy, both for her and maybe couples counseling, but Amanda refuses. She says therapy is a trick can that a therapist would just side with me and gaslight her into thinking she's crazy. I don't think she's crazy. I think she's insecure and spiraling, but I don't know how to pull her out of this spiral. I even went as far as talking to her mom, Diane, about it. Diane sighed and said Amanda has always had these paranoid streaks. In college, she became convinced her roommate was stealing her clothes even though nothing was ever missing. Before that, she used to accuse her high school boyfriend of cheating whenever he so much as texted another girl about homework. Diane said Amanda latches on to an idea and won't let it go. Hearing that was both validating and depressing. Like, this has always been who Amanda is, and maybe she won't change. The real issue is our daughter. Chloe has started to notice. The other day, she asked me, "Daddy, why is mommy mad when you wear your gray hoodie?" "That's just a hoodie, it doesn't mean anything." But Amanda told Chloe once that daddy likes girl clothes, and I had to explain gently that sometimes mommy says silly things. I don't want Chloe growing up thinking her dad is lying about who he is, or worse, that she has to tiptoe around her mom's moods. I'm torn. I love Amanda. We built a life together, but the paranoia is like living under a microscope, where every single thing I do is questioned for some hidden motive that doesn't exist. I can't imagine doing this for another 40 years. Right now, I'm keeping a journal of every time she makes one of these accusations. I don't know if it's for my own sanity, or because I need proof in case we ever do end up in counseling or, God forbid, a custody battle. I want Amanda to get help, that she doesn't think she needs it, and me. I just want to be Ryan, not secretly Rachel, not pretending to be a man, just me. Update. My wife is paranoid that I'm trans. It's been a few months since I wrote my original post, and I need to get this out because the situation has gotten worse in ways I didn't expect. I thought maybe Amanda would calm down or at least move on to a new fixation, but instead she's doubled down. After my first post, I started journaling everything like I mentioned. That notebook is practically full now. I've got dates, times, word-for-word quotes. Some nights I'd write 3 or 4 entries because she'd come at me over the smallest things. It's like everything I do is being filtered through this lens she's created. If I shave my beard a little shorter, you're trying to look more feminine. If I cook dinner and it's pasta instead of steak, you're choosing soft foods because you're soft. She even accused me of hiding nail polish remover once. I don't even know how to respond anymore. I just stare at her and feel exhausted. The family blow-ups haven't stopped either. We went to my sister Emily's house for her son's birthday, Everything was fine until Amanda noticed me helping Emily wash dishes. Just plates and cups, nothing serious. Later in the car, Amanda said, "You seemed awfully comfortable in the kitchen, like you were the woman of the house." I snapped. I told her I was tired of being treated like a liar in my own marriage and that helping my sister with dishes wasn't some trans agenda. She cried and said I was gaslighting her. Chloe has picked up on more, too. She asked me if Daddy is going to be mommy one day. That broke me. I don't care what Amanda says about me, but dragging our 5-year-old into her paranoia feels like crossing a line. I told Chloe, gently, that Daddy will always be Daddy, and nothing about that will change, but I could see how confused she was. I've tried to get Amanda into counseling multiple times. I found a local therapist who specializes in paranoia and family therapy. Amanda refused. She said therapy was a way for the system to brainwash her into ignoring her instincts. I asked her what she wanted from me. She said she wanted me to admit it. That's when I realized this isn't about reassurance. Nothing I say or do will convince her I'm not hiding some grand secret, because in her mind, the lack of evidence is the evidence. The breaking point happened 2 weeks ago. Amanda went through my phone. She saw a group chat I'm in with a couple of coworkers, one of them being a woman named Tara. All Tara had written was a meme about work. Amanda blew up, accusing me of connecting with women to practice being one. That's when I lost it. I told her straight up, if she kept dragging me, Chloe, and our marriage through this, I was going to leave. She screamed, called me a coward, said I was abandoning her just like her dad abandoned her mom years ago. And then this is the part that really scared me. She told me she'd make sure Chloe knew the truth about me. The truth being that I'm secretly trans and hiding it. That night, I packed a bag and went to stay with my sister Emily. I told Amanda we needed space. Since then, we barely spoken except about Chloe's school drop-offs and pickups. Amanda sends me long texts accusing me of running away from who I really am. I don't answer them. Emily has been supportive. She told me I need to protect myself and Chloe first. She even suggested I start talking to a lawyer. Not because she thinks divorce is inevitable, but because I need to know my rights if Amanda really tries to drag this into court or poison Chloe against me. That was sobering, but she's right. I don't want to wait until things get ugly to figure out my options. I don't know if Amanda is ever going to see reason. Her mom Diane told me she's tried talking to her, too, but Amanda shuts her down and says everyone is in on it. That makes me feel like we're way past insecurity. This is a paranoia that needs medical help. But you can't force someone to get help if they won't admit there's a problem. So right now, I'm living at Emily's, seeing Chloe every day, and trying to give her stability. I don't know if Amanda and I will make it through this. I used to believe love was enough, but love can't erase paranoia, and love can't make someone trust you when they're determined not to. I still love her. That's the worst part. But I'm starting to wonder if love alone is enough reason to stay. Final update. My wife is paranoid that I'm trans. It's been almost 6 months since I first wrote about Amanda's paranoia, and I wish I could say things turned around, but they didn't. If anything, they spiraled until there wasn't much left to save. After I moved in with Emily, I kept hoping Amanda would cool off. I thought maybe with some distance, she'd realize how far things had gone and agree to get help. Instead, the distance seemed to make her paranoia worse. She started sending me long emails, accusing me of hiding my real self and saying I'd left her because I couldn't keep my secret life under wraps anymore. She even made a Facebook post about how her husband abandoned his family for his truth. My cousin saw it and called me to check if I was okay. That was the first time I realized Amanda was broadcasting this delusion publicly. I reached out again about counseling. I said we could go together. We could pick a neutral therapist, whatever she wanted. She refused, said therapy was a trap, and that the only way forward was for me to admit what she already knew. That broke me, because how do you reason with someone who has decided their reality is the only reality? Meanwhile, Chloe started acting out. She's 5, she shouldn't have to navigate this, but she'd come to me with questions like, is mommy mad because you're changing into a girl? I'd reassure her, hug her, tell her daddy is daddy. But I could see the confusion, and I hated that Amanda's paranoia was leaking into Chloe's world. That's when I knew I couldn't just wait it out. With Emily's encouragement, I got a lawyer. The first step was setting up a temporary custody arrangement so Chloe wouldn't be caught in the middle of fights. When Amanda found out, she lost it. She said I was trying to steal her daughter. I reminded her this wasn't about taking Chloe away, it was about protecting her from being used as a pawn in all of this. Amanda accused me of manipulating everyone against her, including Diane, her mom. The custody process was ugly, but I stayed calm. I had my journal, months of notes, and screenshots of her texts where she accused me of living a double life. The judge didn't buy her story. He granted me primary custody, with Amanda having visitation rights that would gradually extend if she kept things stable. I hated being in that courtroom, hated how public and raw it all was. But in that moment, I felt like I'd finally done something to shield Chloe. Amanda has since moved in with her friend Rachel, who, unfortunately, seems to enable her beliefs. Every time we exchange Chloe, Amanda barely makes eye contact with me. She still slits little comments to Chloe about me changing, but I've told my lawyer and the parenting coordinator about it, so there's a record. As for me, I'm exhausted, but I'm also lighter. Living at Emily's was supposed to be temporary, but I just signed a lease on a small house nearby. It's not perfect, but it's ours. And Chloe has a bright pink room she picked out herself. She seems happier already. Emily and Diane both help when they can, and Chloe gets plenty of cousin time, which is good for her. Do I still love Amanda? Yes, but love isn't enough to survive paranoia this deep. Not when it starts to erode your identity, your peace, your child's innocence. I've accepted that my marriage is over. My lawyer is finalizing the divorce papers, and I'm focusing on being the best dad I can be. Sometimes at night I think about the early years when Amanda and I would stay up watching movies, or when she held Chloe for the first time and cry. I miss that woman. I don't know if she's still in there, buried under all the fear and suspicion, but I stopped waiting for her to come back. I know now that love can't fix everything. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself, for your child, maybe even for the person you love, is let go. So that's where I'm at, divorcing, rebuilding, and protecting Chloe's world as best I can. I hope one day Amanda gets the help she needs. But until then, Chloe and I are moving forward, one step at a time. Stories number 9. My boyfriend got grossed out by eating me out. I've been with my boyfriend since the end of senior year, so about 6 months now. We're both 18. First real relationship for both of us, and honestly, up until recently I thought things were going really well. We met through friends at a football game, and he was the shy, kind of awkward guy who laughed at all my dumb jokes. His name's Dylan, and I really thought I'd lucked out with him because he wasn't like the cocky guys I'd dated casually before. We both waited a little while before doing anything sexual. Neither of us had much experience, so when things started happening, we were figuring it out together. First base, second, third. It was exciting but also kind of nerve-wracking because neither of us really knew what we were doing. Still, he always made me feel comfortable, and I appreciated that. A couple of weeks ago, we were hanging out at his house while his parents were gone for the weekend. We'd been making out on his bed. Things got heated, and I thought maybe we'd finally try going all the way. But instead of that, he started kissing down my body, and I realized he was about to go down on me. I was nervous but also excited, because it felt like a step forward. Except it didn't go how I imagined. He barely got close before he stopped and made this face, like he was trying not to gag. He sat up quickly and said, "I'm sorry. I don't think I can do that." I froze, my face went hot, and I didn't know what to say. He must have seen how embarrassed I was because he immediately started backpedaling. "It's not you, it's just, I don't know. The idea of it grosses me out." I laughed it off at the time, even though inside, I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I told him it was fine and that we didn't have to do anything I wasn't comfortable with. He seemed relieved and pulled me back into cuddling like nothing happened. But in my head, I couldn't stop spiraling. I went home later and cried in the shower because I kept thinking, what's wrong with me? Do I smell? Do I taste bad? I've always been clean. I shower daily, and I've never had any issues down there. But suddenly I felt disgusting. The next day, I told my best friend Emily about it. She immediately said, "Girl, that's on him, not you. Some guys just aren't into it. It doesn't mean anything about you." She reminded me that Dylan's inexperienced and might just not know how to handle it yet. That helped a little, but I couldn't shake the image of his disgusted face. Later that week, Dylan came over to my house, and I tried to bring it up casually. I said, "Hey, about the other night, did I do something wrong?" He looked shocked and said, "No, not at all. You're perfect. I can't explain it. It just grosses me out. But it's not you. He kept insisting it wasn't personal. I wanted to believe him, but I also couldn't help feeling like he must be lying. I even asked, "Would you be upset if I didn't want to, go down on you?" He shrugged and said, I'd miss out, but I'd respect it. That made me feel even worse, because it sounded like he expected me to do things for him that he wasn't willing to do for me. I mentioned this to my cousin Sarah, who was a couple of years older and in college. She didn't sugarcoat it. She said, "Look, some guys are selfish lovers, and some are just scared because of how porn makes things look. But either way, you deserve someone who doesn't make you feel gross about your own body." That stuck with me. Things between Dylan and me have been weird ever since. Every time we start making out, I'm tense because I keep thinking about that moment we haven't tried again. And honestly, I don't know if I want to. I don't want to feel humiliated twice. The worst part is that I've started avoiding intimacy with him altogether. The last time we hung out, he asked if I was mad at him. And I said no, but I could tell he didn't believe me. He kept saying, "I really like you. I just don't think I can ever do that," like it was supposed to reassure me, but it didn't. It just made me wonder if I should be with someone who looks at my body and thinks gross. Last night, Emily and I were at a diner, and she said, "You're too young to be settling for a guy who makes you insecure about something that's normal and natural. If it's already bothering you this much, imagine how you'll feel in a year." I wanted to argue, but she's probably right. I know Dylan isn't a bad guy. He's sweet in other ways. He opens doors for me, texts me goodnight, remembers little things I say. But I can't shake the feeling that this is going to be a long-term issue. If he's already grossed out now, what happens later? What if I always feel like I'm the problem when really, it's just him not wanting to learn or try? I haven't decided what to do yet. I care about him, but I also care about myself, and right now, I don't feel very cared for. Update. It's been a couple of weeks since I wrote about Dylan getting grossed out, and I honestly didn't expect so much drama to come out of one awkward bedroom moment. I thought maybe I was just overthinking, but the more time passed, the more it started to bleed into every part of our relationship. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself, he's inexperienced, he'll come around eventually. But every time we made out, I couldn't stop anticipating whether he was going to try again or avoid it. And of course, he avoided it. He'd kiss me, grab at me a little, then pull back like he was afraid of what might come next. I started feeling like this huge elephant was sitting in the room with us, and neither of us wanted to acknowledge it. One night, we were at his place watching a movie. His parents were in the other room, and we were cuddled up under a blanket. He kept trying to slide his hand down my jeans, and I froze, not because I didn't want to be touched, but because the thought popped into my head. Why should I let him do this if he won't do the same for me? I stopped his hand, and he looked confused. "What's wrong?" he whispered. I hesitated but finally said, "I just feel like things aren't fair. You want me to do stuff for you, but you don't want to do anything for me." He blinked at me, like I'd just insulted him. "That's not true. I do stuff for you." I shook my head. "You pulled away from me like I was disgusting." "Dylan, you can say it's not personal, but that's how it felt. And now I can't stop thinking about it." He got defensive. "I told you, it's not you." I can't get over it. I don't know why. It just grosses me out, but that doesn't mean I don't like you or that you're gross." The conversation went in circles. I kept saying how it made me feel. He kept repeating it's not you, it's just me, but never actually explaining beyond that. Eventually I just said I wanted to go home, and he let me leave without much of a fight. Later, Emily came over with milkshakes, and I unloaded everything on her. She rolled her eyes and said, "He's 18. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing." And instead of admitting it, "He's making you feel like crap." Then she added, "Also, if he can't handle the most basic part of intimacy, do you really want to keep training him?" I tried to laugh it off, but it stung because she wasn't wrong. A couple of days after that, my cousin Sarah called me. She's blunt as hell, and she asked, "So, are you really gonna keep dating a guy who makes gagging faces at your vagina?" I groaned and told her not to put it that way. But she wasn't wrong either. She told me, "Sex is a two-way street. If he wants to grow up and be a partner, he'll learn. If not, you're just setting yourself up to always feel insecure." I thought maybe Dylan and I could talk it out again, so I invited him over. I told myself I'd be calm, reasonable, and not cry. When he came over, We sat on my porch swing, and I tried again. Dylan, I really like you. But this thing between us is making me feel like I'm dirty or broken. I know you keep saying it's not me, but that's how it feels. He sighed and looked down at his sneakers. I don't know what to tell you. I can't make myself like it. I don't even know if I ever will. That hit me harder than I expected, because for the first time, he wasn't leaving room for maybe later. He was saying never. I asked him, so what happens then? Am I just supposed to never get that part of intimacy from you? Am I supposed to ignore how rejected I feel? He shrugged and said, I don't know. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, right? There are other ways to be close. That was when I realized he didn't get it at all. To him, it was just about avoiding something he didn't like. To me, it was about feeling wanted and not like a burden. We didn't fight, but there was this long silence where I think we both knew things were crumbling. He eventually went home, and I sat on my bed staring at my phone, wondering how I'd gotten into this situation where someone who claimed to like me made me feel so unlovable. I haven't officially broken up with him yet, but we haven't seen each other in almost a week. He keeps texting me hey and good night like everything's normal, but I've been giving one-word answers. I think he senses what's coming, but he isn't addressing it either. And the thing is, I don't even feel angry anymore, just sad. Sad that someone I trusted with such a vulnerable part of myself made me feel ashamed of it. Sad that I'm realizing maybe I need more than he's capable of giving. Emily says I should just rip the band-aid off. And Sarah basically yelled dump him already over the phone yesterday. But I'm dragging my feet, because I remember how sweet Dylan was at the beginning. How safe he made me feel. And I don't want to lose that. Even though, honestly, I think I already have. Final update. So I finally did it. I broke up with Dylan. I wish I could say it was dramatic or cathartic, but really it was just quiet, which almost made it sadder. After my last post, I kept dodging him. I didn't want to see him. And the longer I dragged it out, the worse I felt. Emily kept telling me, you're torturing yourself and him. Just say what you need to say. Sarah, of course, texted me every other day with, dump him already. Eventually, I realized they were right. I wasn't doing either of us any favors by holding on. I asked Dylan to meet me at the park near my house, the one with the swings where we used to go when we first started dating. He showed up with this hopeful look, like he thought we were just going to hang out. I felt guilty immediately, but I forced myself to stick to it. We sat on the swings, and he said, so what's up? You've been kinda distant. I took a deep breath and said, Dylan, I don't think this is working anymore. His face fell. Because of the sex thing. I nodded. It's not just about that, though. It's about how it made me feel, and how you responded afterward. I kept telling you I felt rejected and gross, and you kept saying it wasn't about me. But then you also said you'd never even try again. I don't want to be with someone who makes me feel unwanted. He went quiet for a long time. He kicked at the dirt with his sneakers and finally said, I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I just couldn't do it. I know, I said, and I'm not mad at you for having your boundaries, but I need someone who wants all of me. Not someone who looks at me like I'm too much. He didn't argue, didn't beg me to stay. He just nodded slowly, like he knew this was coming. Then he said, I really do like you, you know. I know, I told him, and I like you too. But sometimes liking someone isn't enough. We sat there in silence until I finally stood up and hugged him goodbye. It wasn't bitter, but it wasn't exactly warm either. It felt like closing a book before finishing the last chapter. That night, I cried harder than I expected. I kept thinking about our first date, how nervous he was holding my hand, how sweet he'd been when he asked me to be his girlfriend. For a moment, I wondered if I made a mistake. But then I remembered the look on his face that night in his bedroom, the way he recoiled from me like I was something to be avoided. And I realized I wasn't crying because I lost him. I was crying because I lost the version of him I thought existed, the one who could see all of me and still want me. The days after were rough. He sent a couple of texts like, hope you're okay and I'll miss you. But I didn't reply. Emily came over and stayed the night with junk food and Netflix, making me laugh when I wanted to sulk. Sarah FaceTimed me and said, see, don't you already feel lighter? I rolled my eyes, but yeah, she wasn't wrong. Something shifted in me. I started realizing that what Dylan did wasn't just about sex, it was about how it made me feel about myself. I'd spent weeks questioning if I was gross or dirty, when really, it was just his hang-up. And I let his hang-up turn into my insecurity. That was the part that stung the most. But now, A little time later. I don't feel gross anymore. I feel relieved. Relieved that I don't have to sit there wondering if my boyfriend secretly thinks I'm disgusting. Relieved that I don't have to beg someone to want me. Relieved that I stood up for myself, even though it hurt. Emily said something the other night that stuck with me. The right guy won't be grossed out. He'll be grateful you're letting him that close. And I think she's right. Dylan wasn't the right guy for me. And that's okay. Not every first love is meant to last. So yeah, that's the end of the story. I'm single again. A little sad, but a lot stronger than when this started. And the next time someone makes a face at my body, I'll know it says more about them than it does about me.